I will call this meeting to order. Good evening. It is 7:01 p.m. This open meeting of the Acton Finance Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth and the local state of emergency declared by the Acton Board of Selectmen and Board of Health due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the Board of Selectmen have suspended all public gatherings, and in accordance with the Governor's order, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The Governor's order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations and/or board votes of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment during the citizens' comments period at the very beginning and during the budget hearing agenda item. For this meeting is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the meeting agenda town's website calendar, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda, if applicable. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Nina, we're going to do a hopefully quick budget meeting first before we hear from you. But before we have that, we can have citizens' comments. Would any citizens like to comment? All right. We'll start with Tom Gillespie. Hello, Tom.
All right, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you. My name is Tom Gillespie and I live on Thoreau Road. I'm speaking tonight as a citizen and respectfully requesting this committee to please reconsider your recommendation for warrant Article 19, the citizens petition about the dog park, for the following reasons. 4 members voted to abstain because the legal status of town use of Isaac Davis Way was not clear. It should be clarified tonight. In addition to what you hear from town council, please understand that the design for the dog park is in the conceptual phase. There are other options for parking that would leave the private IDW completely unused. The dog park committee has listened to the neighbors' concerns and has not run out of options to mitigate them. Secondly is the seriously misguided belief that there is any kind of viable commercial use of the 2 town-owned Main Street properties. Please hear me clearly on this. The AHA project is putting their septic system and leach field on these 2 properties. Their septic design is almost completed. There is no other viable spot on which to build their septic system. They need the septic design to apply for state funding so they can move forward. Unless you want to torpedo the AHA project, you cannot put any kind of revenue generating activity on this site due to septic plans that are already far down its road. It was at a previous CPC meeting that Mr. Major said that pretty much the only thing you can do with this property now is to put a dog park on it. Lastly, the sketches presented by the AHA to town meeting for approval of the Main Street project shows a large, attractive park proposed for the lower parcels. Having such a park is part of what town meeting voted on, but there is no funding for such a venture. No town funds, nothing in the AHA project budget. So using the $250,000 Stanton funds for improving this current wasteland is financially sound, totally in keeping with town support, and as town council will show tonight, is legally vetted and should be supported by voting to not recommend this citizens petition. So please consider your recommendation and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom. And now we will hear from Matt Post. Hello, Matt.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you this
Hey! This is Matt Post, 6 Isaac Davis Way in Acton. I would like to thank Mr. Gillespie for helping me correct my volume for the Zoom meeting. Tell him that was appreciated last meeting. I just didn't get to it. Discussing Article 3, Town Capital Infrastructure Studies and Improvements. You will see a line item for a dog park for $21,000. This is clearly an end-around move by the town manager and the select board member, Dave Martin, to usurp the recommendations of the hardworking committees and residents of Acton. The spending is reckless and unwanted, yet they continue to try and push it through any means they can. The Acton Housing Authority submitted a letter to the Board of Selectmen on October 19th, 2020, notifying them that, quote, "We, the Acton Housing Authority Board, recommend that the selectmen do not use that parcel, Main Street, as a dog park at this time," unquote. The Finance Committee voted in favor of Article 19, which eliminates the $21,000 spending item in the town budget for the dog park and asks that the location be moved from Main Street. In the fiscal year 21 point of view, they are concerned that they paid $567,000 over market value and have $72,061 of missing tax revenue to date and are not going to see a return on this purchase. The CPC voted not to fund the dog park this year because of location and legal issues. All of the neighbors have opposed the dog park because of safety, liability, and legal issues, which the select board has chosen to ignore and push forward regardless. You will hear from our town council stating that she believes that the town has ownership of Isaac Davis Way, and according to the Isaac Davis Way agreement, they have unlimited access to our driveway. Our council believes that the town employees have access to cross over Isaac Davis Way, but not all the town's residents. As we have an actual written agreement registered with the Massachusetts Record of Deeds and have not seen written documentation from council opposing this, the town is only getting her opinion. Our attorneys are fully prepared to have the courts rule on the overburdening of the easement granted, which this clearly does. The Isaac Davis Way residents will follow through with this if the town continues to move forward with the use of Isaac Davis Way. I'm not sure the town wants to continue spending good money after bad. The cost for this line item will be 15 times higher with legal fees and all the construction the town will have to pay for to make this a proper park, with no chance of recouping a dime of the original expense. We have an option to collect rent from a tenant already on the property to stop the bleeding. And in the meantime, we can continue to look for a more permanent solution for the future. That tenant is a landscape company and will not affect the septic system for the housing authority at all. We ask that you do not support the $21,000 dog park line item in Article 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. All right. Alyssa, you are able to speak now.
Thank you. This is Alyssa Nickel from School Street. I sent an email earlier today, but I just wanted to reiterate here in citizens' concerns, repeating what Mr. Gillespie said regarding the parcels on which the septic and leaching field for the Acton Housing Authority Senior Housing Project is situated. The landscaping company cannot move to that parcel because you cannot place a parking lot and a building on top of the septic system and the leaching field. The site for the dog park parking lot, whether it is where it is drawn in the schematic or whether it's moved to a different location, has already been vetted and approved by the engineer for the AHA project. It's not an issue. I also want to comment that at every meeting, whether it's Acton Housing Authority, Select Board, Community Preservation Committee, or Finance Committee, there seems to be only one abutter who is speaking. And every time I hear Mr. Post speak, he states that he represents all of the abutters. I was involved in an opposition to a project, the Piper Lane condominium proposal, and the abutters to that property numbered a dozen. And we were all at all of the meetings of Conservation Commission and Board of Selectmen. And any one of us would have been able to speak to any of the issues because we met regularly, we were all in agreement, we all understood the issues. And I don't see that happening here. And I'm very disappointed that the Finance Committee would make a decision based on a threat of a lawsuit, because our legal budget exists to protect the interests of the town. The dog park, which would serve 1/4 of the households in Acton, is in the best interest of the town. And if the town is not willing to use that legal budget to protect its best interests, then any single resident who's unhappy with any decision our boards and committees make can hold the town hostage, basically. So I would urge you to reconsider your recommendation on Article 19. Thank you.
All right. I do not see any other, oh, sorry, we've got one more. Ryan Robson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes, I have no idea, like my kids were playing on my phone. So this is Ronald Albuquerque, 12 Isaac Davis Way. I would like to rebut Alyssa Nickel. All of us from Isaac Davis Way are here on the call. We have been on all the other calls. It is easier to coordinate and have one person speak as a collective voice, as opposed to everyone getting up and speaking the same thing. Matt Post does not speak just for himself. He speaks in coordination with all of the neighbors on Isaac Davis Way. We have been on all the meetings, and I think that's all I want to say. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. That is it for our citizens' comments. There is no one else asking to speak, so we will move on to the budget hearing. I will read out the budget hearing and then we can take public comment. The proposed budget for the fiscal year 2022 is $107,541,663, which is an increase of $3,284,339, or 3.15% over the fiscal year 2021 budget. The town operating budget is up by $951,418, or 2.69%. Capital spending decreased by $25,003, or 2.97%. Included in the capital expenditure of $814,997 is $213,997, which is interest on $2,436,000 in capital projects that are proposed to be bonded. The remaining $601,000 of the capital is being funded by existing reserves. Compensation has increased $868,582, or 3.29%, accounting for 91.29% of the operating budget change. The total operating budget for the Acton-Boxborough Regional School District increased by $2,806,521, or 2.99%. This budget includes a decrease of 8 positions. The compensation increase for personnel is $2,203,000, $2,203,591, or 3.6%. After accounting for the school district's revenue, reserve use, and cost shifts per the regional agreement, Acton's assessment increases by $1,959,879, or 2.99%. The Minuteman assessment increased by $456,890, or 28.26%. The increase in Acton's student enrollment in the district has increased Acton's share of the budget. The increase in budgets will be met by the revenue changes listed below. Proposition 2.5 allows for the increase in the tax levy by 2.5% per year. In fiscal year 2022, Acton will increase the taxes less than the allowed 2.5%. Taxes could have been increased by more under Proposition 2.5. New growth is the value of new buildings not previously on the tax rolls. Local receipts include excise taxes, permits, and other fees. As a result, the average single-family tax bill will increase by $408, or 3.26%, from $12,502.79 in fiscal year 21 to $12,910.71 in fiscal year 22. Would the citizens like to comment? Would anyone on the committee like to comment? Do we need a motion at this time? No? Okay. Then we will move on to the next agenda item.
You have to officially close the hearing.
How do I do that?
You said I closed the hearing.
Okay, I close the hearing.
Thank you.
Nina, please speak to us about the Isaac Davis Way ownership.
I would be happy to. Good evening, all. Nina Pickering Cook, Town Council. I know many of you, although I don't speak to all of you as regularly as the Board of Selectmen or some of the other boards. My understanding of the information you want from me tonight concerns a few different questions around the ownership of Isaac Davis Way. I am not speaking and have no position as to whether it's an appropriate location for the dog park. Of course, I am only speaking as to the review that we have done in the rights of a portion of Isaac Davis Way. I think when we're talking about issues related to land rights, it is always easiest to do so in conjunction with looking at a plan or a map. So I was hoping I could share my screen.
Please do. Do you have permission to do that?
We shall see. I think so. Can people see anything?
Yes.
Okay. My screen is kind of split here. So these are the basic questions that I was asked. Essentially, who owns Isaac Davis Way? Who has the right to pass over it? And would the residents abutting Isaac Davis Way be potentially liable if the town made use of its rights to use Isaac Davis Way? What we were talking about is here on this plan. As you can see, Isaac Davis Way runs from Hayward Road all the way through to Main Street. You see that green dotted line on the plan here. The portion of Isaac Davis Way we are talking about, we are not talking about the town using the entirety of the way or the way that fronts along the abutters' homes. We are talking solely about this area right here that passes over what is shown here as lot 54 and 352 Main Street. So it goes right up until that property line there. As many of you know, there is currently a gate that sits along that property line. The background here is parcel 32 and parcel 34, along with the triangular parcel down here, were bought by the town from Walker Realty in settlement of litigation over Walker Realty's proposed development of a large daycare center on these lots. At the time, Walker had proposed to develop the property. Mainly the building was going to go on parcel 32 here with the parking lot on parcel 54. At that time, he, as an abutter, had some rights to use Isaac Davis Way, was facing considerable opposition from the abutters of the surrounding properties, and so entered into an agreement in 2011 with the Isaac Davis Way abutters, which said essentially, we will relinquish our rights to use all of the remainder of Isaac Davis Way. We'll put a gate up here for you, and we'll use only this small portion of Isaac Davis Way. That's what you'll hear both Mr. Post and I refer to as the 2011 agreement. That was done in order to, I think on Walker's part, settle any potential opposition or litigation with the abutters. The abutters were incredibly concerned that people going to the daycare center would cut through Isaac Davis Way to try to, as a back way to get to the daycare center. So by putting a gate there and relinquishing walkers' rights to that portion, they were essentially cutting off that as a shortcut route to that parcel. So that is the background. This dotted line here that shows Isaac Davis Way is not a separate lot. It is a way that over which there are easements, and it is a portion of Lot 54. It is part of what the town bought when it bought Lot 54. Now, what the 2011 agreement with the Isaac Davis Way abutters relinquished a lot of the town's rights in the rest of Isaac Davis Way and some of its rights in this portion from Main Street to the gate, but it did not relinquish ownership. So I can read from the agreement here. The town's, it's this bullet point here, specifically the town's predecessor in interest entered into a 2011 release and gate road maintenance agreement that relinquished, quote, all right, title, and interest in any access, egress, or other rights to Isaac Davis Way. Now, this operated as a termination of rights, not a transfer of title. As you can see, this was not created as a separate lot. If you're going to transfer title to a parcel, you need to create it as a separate lot, and it needs to be deeded out in the registry as a separate lot. Now, the 2011 agreement is not a model of clarity, right? The abutters have a non-frivolous argument that the town or Walker, we got all of our rights from Walker. The town wasn't a party to the 2011 agreement. I can understand why they have a misunderstanding that they own that portion of Isaac Davis Way. The better reading, looking at all the circumstances and the fact that a different lot was not created, is that the town still owns this property, although it relinquished many rights to it. What remains is, pursuant to that 2011 agreement, the town relinquished all rights to Isaac Davis Way, except access and egress for emergency use on the full portion of the way, maintaining existing utilities within the portion crossing 352 Main. That's the portion we're concerned with. And access and egress over the portion of the street crossing 352 Main. The other owners, so we only retained rights in this portion. We gave up all the rights we had to cross the remainder of Isaac Davis Way. That's undisputed between the town and the Isaac Davis Way abutters. The Isaac Davis Way abutters retained the right to cross over the easement here as well, the Isaac Davis Way portion from Main to the gate. They had the right to use that portion. When this agreement was made, Walker again needed this portion as access and entry to his parking lot that was going to be here. Now the posts contend, and again, I understand he's speaking for the abutters contend that that does not give the public the rights to use that portion of Isaac Davis Way. However, the rights that we got from Walker were not that limited. Walker had the right to use it as a public parking lot for his daycare center. So although the neighbors certainly could bring an action for overburdening that easement, I don't think in our estimation that would be successful. Now, all of this being said, the abutters certainly, as I said, have a good faith belief that they own this and they can limit the town's rights to use this portion of the way. I have every reason to believe that they would go forward with a litigation to clarify those rights. I strongly believe that that's a litigation the town would win. But as I said, it's non-frivolous argument that they have, and they certainly could and have given every indication that they would bring that. There has been questions as to whether if the dog park was placed and in using a portion of Isaac Davis Way for access or parking, whether the Isaac Davis Way abutters who have rights to that area could be liable for any injuries that occur in that area. And the answer is no. They have no more liability in an entity or a street area that they don't own than they would have liability for something that occurred along Main Street. So they simply, the liability risk is not a reasonable or foreseeable risk that I foresee for the Isaac Davis Way abutters. So I will stop there, and why don't you all ask me specific questions you have about this, and I can focus on that.
Jason?
Just want to clarify, if there's a gate there at the top of that little sliver, does that makes it reasonable to say that there would be no access to the dog park from the Hayward side, correct? That's a perfectly reasonable thing to expect, that if that gate is perfectly allowed, then it would very heavily it would seal off the ability for people to access the dog park from the Hayward side, correct?
Yeah, so the town does not own the gate. I believe the gate is owned either by the posts, who are the closest abutters, or perhaps they have a neighborhood association that owns that gate. So they would control when and where that gate is opened. That gate now can be opened, I believe, by the abutters and owners along Isaac Davis Way to get out to Main Street. And they have the right to use it in that fashion. We cannot block that gate or entry point, nor is there a proposal to. But we have absolutely no rights to allow the public to use the remainder of Isaac Davis Way beyond the gate.
Very well. So that does protect them from having, lots of traffic coming from the Hayward side.
That's the intent, certainly.
Great. I believe that we have the right to Isaac Davis Way for emergency use. I believe that's what you said.
Yes, emergency access, again, from Hayward, for instance, if for whatever reason, which I can't imagine, it would be quicker for a ambulance or fire truck to come down Isaac Davis Way to reach the parcel instead of use Main Street, then we could use it for emergency access. But again, that's not.
The presence of a gate there, I mean, I don't know. Is it a locked gate? Is it something we can't possibly open? Does that pose a public safety threat because it is an impasse that would force emergency vehicles to come from the Main Street side only?
No, it certainly hasn't proven to be any sort of public safety threat so far. Again, given how accessible the property is from Main Street and the public safety facilities being closer on Main Street than they are on Hayward. But I don't know what the locking mechanism is on that gate.
Okay. If we were to try and honor the not using of that little green sliver, and we put the entry, the actual physical driveway somewhere else, does that mean we can't even allow people to traverse between lot 54 and lot 32 because they'd be walking on the Isaac Davis Way easement?
No. Again, when the town bought the property from Walker, they bought all of the same rights that Walker had. Walker had the right to use that parcel and that sliver for parking and access by the public every single day for his 20,000 square foot daycare center.
And therefore as a driveway as well, if we choose to use it as a driveway.
Correct.
Okay. General question, if I may. How assume we move forward with this and assume the abutters sue the town. What does that do to our risk from a litigation perspective? Is the vast majority of this going to be covered under our existing retainer, or is it $400 an hour for every hour that they choose to chew up?
Litigation is very expensive. This is a fairly straightforward case because it's what would be called a quiet title action, which means there are very little facts in dispute. We literally would just present the title documents to a court and say, here, judge, tell us what you think of these documents, and here's the proposed use for the easement, and would that overburden it? And there's a good deal of case law out there about that issue. So it should be able to be decided as a matter of law without protracted trial. That said, when you're in litigation, it takes two parties to tango. So if the other side wanted to be litigious, then it could certainly get very expensive. As far as whether it would be part of the annual legal budget, every year there's some level of litigation, and it waxes and wanes depending on various, usually it's land use related, whether it's ZBA appeals or other permitting appeals. And this year there are a couple of ZBA appeals that have already come down and are pending. So this could have the potential of pushing the legal budget outside of what's been proposed for the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Adam.
Thank you. Can you please remind me what the plan is for 362 Main Street?
That is the AHA parcel.
And if I understood Mr. Post's comments tonight correctly, he seemed to indicate pretty clearly that the abutters intend to bring a lawsuit regardless of the purpose and use of either 362 or 352. I think he made it pretty clear that they plan to contend the easement, that the town doesn't have rights to the easement. So I don't think what we're arguing here about is a dog park. What we're arguing about is the easement, is the
Adam?
impression I got.
Adam?
Yep.
Isaac Davis Way has indicated no interest in taking the town to court over the AHA use.
That's not what
Including-
Mr. Post said in his
I'm
statements.
clarifying for you what they said previously. They have a deal with the town to allow them to dig under Isaac Davis Way in order to put the septic system in Leachfield on lot 54.
It is my understanding that they don't oppose the AHA project and are not interested in opposing that. But to the extent that the town wants to use the Isaac Davis Way easement area for a dog park, they certainly object to that.
But the complaint being about use of the easement.
Correct.
Thank you.
But the complaint is because of the proposed placement of the dog park. They do not have a problem with the AHA project.
I think they dispute the town's ownership interest in and rights to use the easement regardless of what is going on lot 54, but that's not related to the AHA project. You're right.
Does the AHA project plan to use that easement?
The AHA project needs to use that easement in the fashion that Ms. Anderson has referenced, which is they need to dig underneath it for utilities to access where their septic field is going to go on the lower portion towards Route 2. And I do believe that the Isaac Davis Way, counsel for the Isaac Davis Way abutters and the town and AHA's council have discussed how to have that occur.
But the AHA project doesn't plan to use it as a driveway.
Correct.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, Nina, is the, I guess, ground in question the strip of Isaac Davis Way that crosses Lot 54?
Yes,
And then is it wholly contained within Lot 54, that disputed piece?
it is.
And who is the legal owner of Lot 54?
The town owns Lot 54.
Okay, thank you.
Christine?
Given that we've already satisfied the question as to whether or not the Isaac Davis Way community will bring a lawsuit, can you speak to how long you think that might last and how it might impact or delay any project moving forward?
How it will impact the project moving forward is difficult to say. It all depends on, I mean, the dog park planning, I believe it's in its infancy and design stages, so it very well may be designed for a year or more. Looking at construction scheduling and pricing, they probably want to push it out as long as possible. So it's not clear that a litigation would have any practical impact on the planning. If they could hedge, they being the town or the dog park committee could hedge against that by having a design that does not include the use of the way, so that it could proceed apace and not worry about the litigation. Litigation is lengthy and costly. So especially in these times, I mean, we had almost a 6 or 9 month pause on litigation in the Commonwealth in the past year. So the courts are fairly backed up. This would likely go to the land court, which is has been running more smoothly than others that require jury trials. But it would be a year before a decision, being optimistic.
Mike?
Yeah, couple of questions. Since we own Isaac
Oh,
Davis,
sorry, Mike, can you pause for a second? I'm having a hard time hearing Mike. Is he loud enough for everyone else, or?
can you hear me?
No,
No, he's
louder.
very quiet.
Wait a minute.
It is. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay. I almost forgot my question. Oh, we own Isaac Davis Way, at least we being the town of Acton. But who maintains that road in the winter?
At this point, I'm not sure who maintains that road in the winter. I don't know whether, I don't believe that there was, I'd have to look back at the 2011 agreement and see if there was any maintenance obligations in that. I'm assuming it would go with the user of that way, which would be Walker and hence the town. But who has done it to date, I don't know.
I'm talking like snow removal and stuff like that.
Yep.
Second, can that easement be moved or relocated, negotiated to move to another location?
Sure. So it certainly can be renegotiated. Both parties who to an easement can negotiate a different location. An owner of the underlying lot can unilaterally relocate an easement as long as it doesn't substantially interfere with the easement holder's rights to use it. For instance, if we were to relocate that strip of Isaac Davis Way, we couldn't relocate it to an area which, for instance, was crossing wetlands, which then the Conscom wouldn't let them build a driveway, right? That would be effectively taking that right away from them. But I don't think we're there yet. If we got into litigation, I think we would certainly want to clarify with the courts whether we would have the right to relocate the easement.
Okay, it seems like it's a bigger picture than just Wright Store Road. There's a question that's not being asked about why we're at this roadblock. The other thing is the hypocrisy on many departments, including the Acton Housing Authority, because I was on the Main Street Committee for several years, and when we voted to approve the AHA plan in November of 2018, 3 of the 5 proposals included a dog park, one of which was the Housing Authority. They had their plan clearly indicated that a possible dog park. They might not have called it specifically a dog park, but that was in part of the conversation. Now to go back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later and say, well, now we oppose it. Had I known that information as a Main Street Committee member, I might have had objections to the housing plan there. It's just the consequence of making, on the part of the town, making bad decisions when we buy parcels like this, almost on a whim, without a strategic plan of what specifically we're going to do with it. I still think, we're paying their price, and we continue to pay the price. And not only this parcel, but other parcels, River Street and other locations. I still think there's a way, working with the property owners, that we could probably make everyone happy by developing Lot 54, and maybe not a dog park, but if we had cooperation with the landowners, we could probably do something that would at least generate revenue. As Matt said, maybe even working with the existing tenant who's there. It doesn't pay a dime to the town right now, but we could have a tenant, maybe not Kennedy himself, but maybe a more, a different, similar tenant there. But I think there's still hope to do something. If it's not a dog park, I think we can do something by working with the tenants to expand.
Jason, I see you. Hold on. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, by expanding Lot 54 or using some of the open space from 32 as well, we'd have a larger developable parcel that we could do like a home and garden center or something that's attractive to the town, because this is a gateway to Acton, and I'm just very concerned that we're not looking at the highest and best use of these parcels. And then, agency, town committees that maybe agree to allow something just to get approval for their site, and then once they get approval, turn around and, now say they're against a dog park. I do not like the hypocrisy, and it's shameful. I think the dog park people have worked very hard. Everybody's getting screwed. The dog park people, the town is getting screwed. The Isaac Davis Way landowners are getting screwed. I'm just disgusted with the whole process. So this can't, in the future, fair warning, we will not allow these land purchases to proceed unless there is a specific plan. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Jason.
I absolutely agree with Mr. Majors that we need to have a solid plan every time we do a land purchase, but that unfortunately is not the situation we find ourselves in right now. My understanding is that a fair chunk of the 352 or the 54 parcel is going to be a leaching field. Is that a tiny little sliver? Is that a significant portion? We're talking a third, a quarter, a tenth of that land is going to be used for the leaching field. Do we have any idea?
It hasn't been designed yet. So, and it's not just, my understanding is it's more likely to be the parcel of the town for that parcel yet.
Okay, so it's entirely possible that these two entities can proceed in parallel. the amount of time it takes to get the AHA project finished, and the amount of time it takes to settle this in land court if indeed the abutters force this. Correct?
That is certainly possible.
Okay. I don't see what the abutters get by suing the town, other than ill will all around. We seem to be stipulating that we can block access from the Hayward side, and that's effectively done by continuing to be perfectly fine with a gate at the edge of the property that the town paid for. I think that will be a very successful deterrent for people trying to come down Hayward Road. I don't see what they get by suing us, other than aggravation on their end as well. I don't think it's wise to hold out for a money-making scheme on a cut-up parcel of land where we've already...
I'm sorry, Jason, can you hold on a second? We will be discussing the use of this property specifically during our Article 3 discussion, correct?
All we're discussing during our Article 3 discussion, Section C, is the $21,000
Yes.
levered 10x by the Stanton facility.
Okay, we are not currently discussing an article. We are simply having Nina give us her legal opinion. I just want to make sure Nina's expensive. I want to be, as a finance committee, only keeping our conversation focused to the stuff she can help us with.
Fair enough. I'm good for now.
So is what you're going to say, does it make sense for it to be a part of the later discussion?
I'm good for now. I believe that the answer is we own lot 54. We should be able to use it for a driveway. And if they sue us, then it's a terrible thing to do to the town folk if all you're trying to do is force the town to have a section of land that can't be used for town good.
The only other thing I would add for your consideration later is the town has offered a number of different remedies to the concerns that some of the neighbors have had for or with being neighbors to a dog park. Those conversations did not end up being successful, but we did spend a lot of time and energy meeting with Mr. Post and the other neighbors to try to figure out what the concerns were and how we could address those, either with vegetative screening, fencing, gates, and the like. Although that wasn't successful, I know Mr. Mangiarati has told me many times his door is still open to these folks to try to ameliorate their concerns on that front. So there hopefully are other options to deal with this beyond or other than litigation.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Nina.
Great, thank you so much. Take care, all.
You too, bye.
Bye. Stop sharing.
Okay, moving on to warrant articles. Adam, would you lead us through the list?
Would it make sense at this time, Madam Chairwoman, to see if there's any appetite to revisit the vote from last week to recommend Article 19?
You are the one who...
I did not vote in favor of it, therefore I cannot bring a motion to reconsider.
I thought you were the one who made the motion.
Nope.
Who made the motion?
Mike did.
Mike did? Adam?
I'm double checking. It was made by Mike Majors and seconded by Christina Russell.
I believe
Mike,
any of the 5 members who voted for it are allowed to discuss whether or not we wish to reconsider.
Did you vote for it or against it?
I abstained.
You abstained. Okay. I have no interest in revoting it. Do any of the other people who voted for it want to revote it? Steve, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk.
I was going to ask Adam to read how we voted.
We voted 5 in favor to recommend the article, 1 against, and 3 abstentions.
So who were the 5?
The 5 that voted for are Christy Anderson, Christine Russell, Mike Majors, Roland Borden, and Steve Noon.
Well, I for one would like to reconsider the article.
Okay.
I'll second, if that's the motion.
Sure, it's a motion.
Okay, who wants to say what?
The only point I make is that there was considerable doubt in my mind, and I think a lot of other people, about the legal status of the property. And I think Nina clarified that in my mind. So, yeah, there's still the risk of a lawsuit. I understand, but I don't think the town is trying to do anything that they don't have the right to do.
Is now the appropriate time for me to speak my piece on this, Madam Chairman?
Yes, certainly.
I definitely want the Board of Selectmen and the Dog Park Committee to work in good faith with the abutters on Isaac Davis Way. But given the unfortunate hand that's been dealt us, which is we bought this property because we didn't want a great big gigantic child care center. We came back later that the best possible option that was presented to us is giving a portion of land over to AHA. That unfortunately is not a revenue producing entity. So the land has already been carved up. To then turn around and say we can't use the land for anything else ever in perpetuity and it's just going to be an overgrown shrub, I think is a mistake. I think using this land for a dog park satisfies a requirement or a strong request from town people. Furthermore, this is a highly levered program. This is a 10x leverage program with the Stanton organization. I hope that the Board of Selectmen and the abutters on Isaac David Way can figure out a way to live in peaceful harmony without having to go into litigation. While I am not looking forward to the litigation costs, I would suggest that there are only a handful of people on Isaac Davis Way, and I sincerely hope that they would consider agreeing on a fence or agreeing on a noise reduction shrubbery over the extended cost of litigation that they're going to have to pay half of, they're going to have to pay their side of as part of this project. This is a levered project. This is something that we want. This is a tainted piece of land that we can either decide to just walk away from and never get anything out of other than the AHA project. Or we can actually provide another service for the townspeople at minimal cost to us because we're able to leverage everything else. I'll let other people talk, but I'm prepared to make a motion to not recommend this Article 19.
I would like to speak. Does anyone else want to jump in first? I am disappointed about this use of this land financially. I am also extremely frustrated with our select board that chose to not bring this article or an article regarding the idea of building a dog park to town meeting. They have somewhat unilaterally, as is their right, gone ahead and agreed with the dog park committee that there should be a dog park at this location. And that is why there are the design funds in the budget, the matching that needs to be done. As an owner of 2 dogs in the town, I have zero interest in being a part of a dog park. It's not somewhere I know people like dog parks. It's not somewhere I ever will take my dogs to. So to include me in those numbers is not representative. I also have difficulty with the idea that this will be treated with normal hours of a park, which is dawn to dusk. I know that the park near my parents' house, where it's a large park, that the dog hours start at 6 a.m. and that's when people bring their dogs out to play. In spite of what Miss Nickel has said, my dogs do not play quietly. Other dogs I see nearby playing do not play quietly. So for the abutters in the form of the AHA and the Isaac Davis Way people, I think it is not unreasonable to have a request for a time limit on when that is available. And my understanding is that that request was rejected by the dog park committee and possibly also by the town. There are a lot of questions here. Also, we rejected as a town, we bought this property in order to not have an ugly daycare center. And all we have, the idea of money being there for right now with the Stanton grant is to put up a chain link fence and a parking lot, but that's not what you want to see. You don't want to see a chain link fence when you come up. The drawings are beautiful with the stone wall and the gazebo, but we're not talking about funding that. We basically are saying, let's write a check and hand over all these rights. We are supporting the idea of handing over all these rights to this property and giving a thumbs up on a project that we do not understand the scope of. And frankly, this is the one chance that we as a town have the opportunity to step in and say, just back up. Let us actually know what we're talking about. I can tell you they've had a number of public meetings about dog parks, and I have heard repeatedly that people have had a chance to attend that. I can tell you, not being interested in using a dog park, I did not attend any of them. I doubt that people who don't have dogs attended them. So the fact that this has been left closed effectively to public comment by not going by a town meeting, I find extremely frustrating. I don't want the cost of litigation. So as much as anything else, I am still for the citizens petition, and I am against funding this grant money. I'm not fully against the project, but think that it needs to be done in a way to give broader town conversation. Dave.
Excuse me. I had a question for Tom Gillespie, if he's still on. My question is, we've talked about the town's matching funds and the leverage to the 250. Is who would be expected to cover any costs beyond the $250,000 for the park?
They'll probably have to be promoted to answer.
Yeah. Hello, Tom.
Okay, so we have checked on typical costs for construction of the little less than 2-acre park that we're proposing from various neighboring towns. They all have fit comfortably within the $250K. If there should be more or perhaps follow-on projects, there are additional Stanton capital grants available post-construction of the park that we could apply for. Those would be fairly larger size projects. And then the Friends of Acton Dog Park is just recently been sort of activated and is well on their way to significant fundraising for friends, like the Arboretum, like the schools, like so many other things in town. Does that answer the question, David?
I think so. It sounds like, source of funds, number one would be Stanton additional funds, and then the Friends of Acton Dog Parks, number two. Is that the end of the list, number 1 and 2 there?
I'll mention again that the dog license fees were recently increased by $2, giving us a revenue stream of about $4K a year, which we again believe will cover the majority of the annual maintenance costs based upon what we've heard from other towns. The recreation department, which will sort of the dog park will fit under the fold of the recreation department, will be providing certain basic facilities. There was a question about snowplow removal, trash pickup, etc. The recreation department has already felt that they could accommodate the additional work for those things now also from the dog park.
So to the best of your knowledge, the expense to the direct expense to the town of Acton would be limited to the $21,000.
That is correct. And in all of the pro forma budgets that we've done, that the select board asked us to do, We did not have any additional, sources of town funding. We didn't even have any specific, maybe future CPC requests. It should be all self-contained and budgeted.
Great, thank you.
Tom, you said that the costs for the surrounding towns that you looked at, the dog parks and other places, did that include the building of the parking lot? I know you said that parking lot building would be covered by the Stanton grant, correct?
I don't know explicitly, but for instance, Air, they have a new parking area associated with the park, so I believe that one looks like it was. I know Natick built and added new parking facilities. It's rare that these sites already have adequate existing parking that doesn't need some work. So I'm speculating a little bit if you allow me to do that, but I think the answer is yes.
Yep. Thank you. Anyone else? Question for Tom? Yep. Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Roland, we are rediscussing Article 19. That is the citizens petition.
Favor of the citizens petition.
Anita Pickering Cook spoke to us and indicated that she believes that the town owns that portion of Isaac Davis Way, but that there is room for, it would be not frivolous argument that the Isaac Davis Way legal side could make. And there is reasonable room for litigation. Is that a fair representation?
That's why I, in supporting the citizens petition, I mean, as you said when I first got on the call, that we need to step back and really understand that. We cannot say, oh, we support it, it goes forward, the residents sue the town, and the town loses in court, and we end up with a big bill. So I think more due diligence really needs to be done. I don't like the spot myself for it anyway. I think Morrison Farm's a much better location for something like that. The town already owns the property. There's plenty of room there. And I mean, how do we not know that they build the residences that they're going to build on the Kennedy property right now, and because of all the rock ledge and that other problem on this property, they need to blast that for some reason for the septic or some other thing, or they can't put the fence down because on the dog park because there's rock ledge there. There's a lot of unknowns still with that, and I just think they're better off doing a full due diligence, and I don't feel it's been really fully 100% vetted with that. I think there's too many questions, there's too much opposition to it, and that's why I'm supporting the citizens petition.
Anyone else? Mike?
Yeah, just for the record, looking again at my notes at the actual public hearing for the committee held, the Main Street Committee held in November of 2018. The other group that did not strongly object, according to my records, is the residents. They didn't, they had a chance to speak up then. If there was objection from the Isaac Davis Way Neighborhood Association, we didn't hear them at that, and if we did, it might have put a kibosh on the proposal for any of those potential developments. So it's just a very, it's a crap sandwich that they're asking us to take a big bite of, and no matter what we do, it's not going to be the right answer. One possible solution is just to defer this for 6 months to a year until we resolve all these open issues, and not do anything until we resolve all the technicalities, design issues, ownership issues, whatever. And, also explore options that would make the residents happy as well as AHA. I don't even know if AHA has all their funding sources lined up yet. And they should have been done a year ago. If AHL, if the housing people can even produce what they promised to produce, it's what I was asking.
At this point, I move that we not recommend the citizens petition regarding the dog park.
And not recommend would mean effectively supporting the use of those funds for the dog park.
Correct.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Sahana, you second? Okay. Adam, please call the roll.
Adam, you're on mute.
Bear with me. Christie,
Nay.
Christine,
Nay.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
I would switch my vote to aye.
Roland. Sahana,
Aye.
Steve Noon,
Nay.
And Adam, your vote?
my vote will be aye. So that is 5 ayes and 4 nays to not recommend the citizen petition against the dog park funding.
I believe this is Mike's to present at town meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
Mike, I would recommend that you say, by all means, what our position is, but I would also recommend that I believe everyone in the committee agrees that we would direct the Board of Selectmen to please make nice, please listen, and please provide as much detail as possible.
So moved.
That was not a motion.
I hear you.
Thank you.
Adam, can you take us through the list, please?
Yes, we have, just total this up, still 31 unvoted articles as of the list sent out by Mr. Hall today. Starting with number 1, do you want to just go through them one by one?
Yes, please.
So the first one is an article to choose town officers. Nobody had,
We don't say anything for this one.
okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that one. Bear with me, just move it out of here.
Do we give no recommendation or is it just blank?
We just defer it. We don't say a thing and it shows up as deferred.
So the next unvoted article is Article 2, town operating budget.
I recommend the town operating budget.
Second.
You,
Do we have to
Okay,
say
I make a
motion?
motion to recommend the town operating budget.
Second.
Debate? All right, Adam, please lead us in a vote.
Christie,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
He is rebooting.
Jason,
aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
That was an aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Is Dave back online?
Not yet.
An abstention.
Yeah.
Do I officially mark him as an abstain or as just blank did not vote officially in minutes?
I don't know.
Blank. All right.
We could dance for a minute until he comes back.
No, it's fine. Article 3, town capital infrastructure studies and improvements, and also Article, we have to do one at a time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Article 3, town capital.
That one's mine. I'd like to take this as a consent decree, as a consent article, and see if anybody would like to hold any of these elements. Is that acceptable to the chair?
You're saying that,
I'm going to read through these. If anyone wants to hold them, we do it. Okay. If that's acceptable to you, then would anyone like to hold diversity officer study and implementation? Tree assessment. Dog park grant match. I'm expecting to hear somebody say hold.
hold.
Yeah.
Do you
Vacant.
need a second?
I don't think so.
No, not for this, because we're talking.
I'll second it anyway.
Okay.
Vacant storefront program. I hold.
Yeah.
Sidewalks. Brush chipper. Net zero vehicle replacement program. Complete streets program. Fire alarm systems for existing fire stations. Sustainability program. Fire tools. Forklift. And police technology. So given that the only two that we held are C and D, it is my expectation that everyone finds the rest of these requests to be perfectly normal and uncontroversial. My recommendation is that for the ones that we've not held, that we go ahead and vote a recommendation of all of these subsections with the exception of the dog park grant match and the vacant storefront program. Can I have a second? Thank you.
Second.
To be clear, you're moving that we recommend Articles A, B, and then E through M?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's been seconded by Christine. Does anyone want to discuss any of these? These are all very straightforward.
Jason,
Yes,
can
sir.
you please reiterate for me which items we're holding from that and making the notes for the motion?
C as in Charlie, D as in Delta.
Only 2 of them are being held.
Correct.
It's the
Thank
dog
you.
park grant match and the vacant storefront program, in case the letters ever change.
Oh my God. I hope not.
No, I don't think at this point.
We're getting pretty late in the game. We're good. Okay, so I made the motion. Christine seconded it. We're ready when you are, Mr. Clerk.
Christy,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Still not back.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
Roland?
Aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Okay, I believe we should take up the dog park grant match now. Believe we just rehashed this. I am going to make the motion that we recommend section C.
Second.
Okay, and we might really need to wait for Dave to get back. Or 4. Unless somebody is different on this versus the non-binding citizen petition.
I'm going to abstain, so I think you guys can go ahead.
Okay.
So this is a motion to recommend section C about the dog park in the previous article. Christy,
Nay.
Christine,
Nay.
Dave,
Can I be reminded which article?
This is
Article 3, we're talking about specifically the dog park grant match. And Jason has moved that we recommend it.
I'll vote aye. Thank you.
Jason,
aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
What did you say?
Nay.
Sahana,
Abstain.
Steve Noon,
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Interesting. Right. I carried.
Yeah, who switched the vote?
I did.
You did.
Who did? You meant to vote aye, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So now the next subsection on this one is the vacant storefront program. I am fully aware of the fact that I am tilting at windmills here, but I'm going to make my pitch anyway. This vacant storefront program is another taking of public funds to use for private enterprise. Furthermore, it is only available to 2 storefronts in any 1 year.
So Jason, can you back up a little? Or is part of your tilt going to involve explaining what this program is?
Sure. The vacant storefront program is a statewide program where if we define a specific district, such as Route 2A, and identify vacant storefronts, we can use a dollar-for-dollar match from the state as long as we provide equal dollars from the town to provide economic help to the individual storefront owner. Does anyone need greater explanation than that?
Roland does.
I guess my question is it help marketing the property, or is it help just to give the landlord money and he doesn't really need to do anything, or she doesn't need to do anything?
A business applying for tax credits must be proposing to move into a vacant storefront located in the downtown or commercial district of an eligible municipality. An eligible municipality is one that is already officially declared a district prior to the meeting. So this is tax credits for filling an otherwise empty storefront.
It's also forgivable loans if they stay in business for 5 years.
Correct. And temporary pop-up shops don't count.
Do you know which two properties? Do you know which 2 properties you're referring to, Jason?
I do not know which 2 properties are up for this grant at this time. I believe somebody has just raised their hand.
Yeah, the properties have to be vacant for at least a year, so it could be any number of properties.
Chairwoman,
Yeah, would we like to hear from David Martin about this?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
I was going to request.
Hello, Mr. Martin.
Hi, so there are 8 properties on Great Road that would be eligible. So, as Jason points out, this would only fund 2 of the 8, but potentially people wanted to move in could choose any of the 8. Maybe the first 2 that wanted to move into those.
Just to be sure I understand, you're saying that there are 8 properties available. If 2 companies came forward, they could pick which of those 8. It would apply to whichever they picked of those 8, not the properties, but the companies. The grant is-
Yeah, so basically 8 of the properties on empty properties on Great Road would be eligible for 2 grants.
What is if I may, Madam Chairwoman,
Yes, please.
what is the selection criteria for who would receive one of those 2 slots in any given year?
I'm not absolutely sure. I was under the impression that it was, first eligible to meet all the eligibility criteria. I'm not sure I could get that answer immediately to confirm. Well, my impression was it depended on eligibility, and so if you are eligible, you would get it. We'd run out of grants at 2.
First come, first serve. Very well, thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to move that we do not recommend this for the following reasons. I believe that this is, again, the taking of public funds to give to private enterprise. I believe that this does not help the overall business owner in town because we are picking an exceedingly few number of winners, even fewer winners than last time. This also does not allow for the free flow of market economics. If there are empty storefronts, then rents must go down. If rents are artificially inflated or propped up by the town, then we are causing harm to all other businesses as rents continue to be inflated. This does nothing for the individual this does nothing for the individual business owner other than provide a short-term respite without helping the wider business community. Again, we're picking winners and losers, and I morally object to the taking of public funds and providing to private enterprise. This is different than the last boondoggle in that this is matched 1-to-1 from the state, so this is at least somewhat levered, unlike the last time around. But again, this is a 1-to-1 leverage. I don't believe it should happen. I know I lost resoundingly last time, but I absolutely cannot say that I believe this is a good use of public dollars. If there are already 8 vacancies, we're obviously not going to solve the whole problem in 1 year. It would take 4 years if we were to do everything, and that's assuming that market forces do not turn around. I cannot recommend this, and therefore I move that we not recommend the vacant storefront program.
I'll second.
All right, discussion? Can I go first, Mike?
Yeah, I think, once again, I think small business exists in partnership with the town and the community. It's, they're every bit as part of our community as a single residence or school or a park or everything else. It's these small businesses exist what they do is they give the town character and a reason for people to come and spend money and eat at a restaurant or buy fancy clothes or whatever unique art things and so on, arts and crafts. And I think it's just important for the community. And when we're talking the town, we're talking the community. Support these businesses. They've struggled and they've done their part to help the town. And I think that grant program last year was hugely successful. It was very much appreciated. It helped them keep their heads above water. It showed them that the town at least cares, and the money is almost insignificant. And these 2 properties, if we have 8 vacant properties that qualify for this grant, we have money for support 2 of them, and I think they could serve as incentive. It was you're seeding the soil. It work as it would get these 2 guys started. Act as a catalyst for others to follow, and the economy eventually is coming around, and we need to be a little proactive. We just can't let things fall by the wayside. If we can do, and these are just really baby steps that we're doing, do whatever we can to help. That we show that they are part of the community, and a helping hand is available. So why not help? That's my 2 cents.
I'm with Mike in that these companies are, the businesses in our town are community members. They pay taxes, they donate to our causes, they are places that we go and interact with. This isn't being in just even a big corporation with an office building, which still is a part of our community. Empty storefronts are ugly. They make an area look more depressed, and that honestly hits property values. So I'm going to argue that there is even financial benefit to the property owners in the nearby areas of having this. So in short, I am on the opposite side of Jason. Yes. Christine. You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. You know, I've lived here for 13 years and economic forces seem to indicate that the empty storefronts will just continue to increase because that's all I've seen. I think that filling storefronts will help fill other storefronts. I think that when you make an area attractive and you bring commerce, greater commerce to an area, you're more likely to attract a neighbor into another empty space. So, and this isn't a great deal of money, and it is matched funds, and I think it's a better investment than a dog park.
Steve?
Yeah, as much as I share Jason's, I guess, macroeconomic concept, this to me it's short money and it's leveraged by the state, and we do have a problem with empty storefronts, and I might not want to see this thing go on forever or be greatly expanded, but I think we got to give it a try.
I also wanted to add in, as a previous owner of a small business, every little bit helps. So even the small amounts that we're talking here might not be meaningful for large business, but even a few months rent aid is extremely beneficial. If we do agree with this, it might help Jason believe or understand that it could go further.
2 wheelers out of 600 plus in town. It's not worth it. Not fair.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? I see no hands. Adam, would you, actually, Jason, could you remind us of the motion?
The
Not
motion,
recommend?
not recommend the vacant storefront program.
Adam, could you please call the roll?
Christie,
Nay.
Christine,
Nay.
Dave,
Nay.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Nay.
Roland,
Nay.
Sahana,
Nay.
Steve Noon.
Nay,
I don't know why I always say your last name, and I will abstain.
you're respecting your elders.
That concludes Article 3, I believe. So now
No,
we're on
we
Article
did-
4.
We have a
Oh, sorry.
I move that we recommend Article 3,
Ah,
whatever it is, storefront.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, let's vote. So Adam, this is a motion to recommend Article 3, Section D, vacant storefront program.
who seconded that? Christine
Christine.
did? Let's vote. Christie,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Dave?
Try again.
Jason,
Nay.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland, no Roland.
Roland?
Sahana.
Aye.
Oh, there he is. Sahana,
Aye.
First time.
Steve,
Aye.
and I will abstain again. Shall we move on to Article 4?
Yes. Is this also yours, Jason?
Yes, it is. It's also four separate entities. We'll just run through them if anyone wants to hold them. Public Works Facility and Transfer Station Design.
Hold.
Kelly's Corner Pedestrian Lights.
Hold.
Acton Center Traffic Redesign Construction. 53 River Street Dam Removal Grant Match. Okay, so with your permission, Madam Chair, I move that we recommend Acton Center Traffic Redesign Construction and 53 River Street Dam Removal Grant Match.
You have a second?
Second.
Sorry, pause. Jason, can you please just repeat those two items? Traffic?
Traffic Redesign Construction and 53 River Street Dam Removal.
Is that traffic redesign construction specific to Kelly's Corner?
Not
No, this is Acton Center.
This is Acton Center. This is up
And
by the center fire station.
My house.
and who did the second on that motion?
Steve did.
David,
Well, sorry,
Thank
what's
you.
the motion?
The motion is to recommend section C and D, the Acton Center traffic redesign construction and the 53 River Street Dam matching grant. Would anyone like to discuss it? Any debate on this one, or can we move to the vote?
We can vote.
Christie,
We're recommending, correct? I say
Yes.
aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave, Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland.
Yeah.
Roll.
Aye. I don't know why it's not picking up tonight. Sorry.
Stahana,
Aye.
Steve,
aye.
and I vote aye.
Okay. The Public Works Facility and Transfer Station design is part of the 10-year plan that was provided to us in March. At the time, well, the request specifically here, the reason why it's a nice round number is because this is sort of the next phase of trying to figure out where to go and what to do on the entire campus of the transfer station, including some site work, a replacement of the hut, and a replacement of a much larger DPW building. So it's not just a single building, but it is a multi-part project, which was originally estimated in the March 10-year plan at $10 million for the overall work. It is my understanding that that estimate has changed since early March, and that the estimate is now north of $30 million for the overall work. And so, while I'm not the person who held this, I was going to if somebody else didn't. I believe that we should be doing some research. I definitely believe we need to do our due diligence. I absolutely want to see a final plan before we could even hope to sign off on a single project that is greater than the entirety of the amount of risk that was assigned the last time the town did the town did a third-party evaluation of our properties. As I recall, the town's total risk 5 years ago was $26 million, and this one project blows that out of the water. Personally, I feel like $1 million is a heck of a lot of money to just go and do some fact finding. But given that this proposed change is so large, spending the money up front with the directive that they need to find a cheaper solution for a garage needs to be clearly stated. So I don't know which way we should go on this as a committee. I think doing the due diligence up front is something that we've requested numerous times. I would have very strongly preferred if the town had worked with us hand in hand on that 10-year plan, rather than just dropping something off in March, despite the fact that we had members of the committee who were willing to be part of the 10-year capital improvement plan. I think it speaks to everything that we've spoken to tonight about not having a plan for the Walker property and not having a plan for River Street, that they absolutely should have come to us first. I'm not saying that we can't do anything to the transfer station, the DPW building, but $32 million is an eye-popping number for a garage. So I would like us to, if we decide to put this money forward, by all means, let's make sure that the direction that we suggest to the Board of Selectmen and the town is that they use that money to find the absolute most efficient use of this money, even if it means that we don't put in a gigantic car wash inside there. We use our use funds to do private party machine washing, because this, I cannot comprehend how this building should cost $32 million. So I believe somebody else held this. Would anyone else like to comment on it?
Steve?
Yeah, I held it, and yes, I've independently verified Jason's number of $32 million. By way of background, in 2015, when the overall facility study was done, these two facilities had a estimated replacement cost of about $9 million. There was about $10 million carried in the town manager's 10-year capital plan for the DPW building. So we are 3 times the amount that certainly anybody was thinking prior to this news. And it is relatively late-breaking news. I hate to see the project stop, but I'm not about to commit $1 million to design a $32 million facility that I, for one, would have a very hard time asking the taxpayers to pay for. There seems to be either scope creep or some change in approach from anything we had previously thought about this. I've been in the building. It's not a great building. I'll grant you that. But it's not a building that many of the public ever go in. So I just would need to see a whole lot more about what we intend to do. That's going to cause the estimated cost to triple from what we had thought before.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Certainly.
Mr. Noon, while I wholeheartedly agree that I do not want to see us committing to applying money for schematics for a $32 million project, how do you feel about the $1 million number at this time, given that they clearly need to do a lot of homework to figure out what we need and how to do this in an efficient manner? Do we provide them the money to do the research now, or do we try and shave back to be more commensurate with the standard couple of % of final project for scope? Does that make sense? Does the question make sense?
I'd like to see them proceed to work on this, but like I said, $32 million is a lot of money. Should we even have a transfer station? Should we consider doing curbside trash? I mean, there's a whole lot of questions can be asked. And I think the $1 million might be well spent asking those questions or researching them. But just to $1 million to design a building that I can't see that I would ever want to ask the taxpayers to pay for. No, I don't want to spend that. So if it can be repurposed or recharacterized as not design money per se for the existing $32 million building, then yeah, I'll be okay with the money. The other thing you have to remember is, if I'm not mistaken, Jason, this is capitalized.
Yes. This is borrowed.
Yes.
And
I'm sorry. The proposal, just because I got some clarification on it, the proposal is to borrow all but 200,000 of that. 200,000 would be used from retained earnings.
So the issue with capitalizing design money for a building you never build, and Steve Barrett can correct me if I'm wrong, is then you have to kind of you can't carry it over the long period of time. Once the decision is made not to do it, you have to take it right back out of the current year or the current next 2 years or something like that. But yeah. So I just think it's a little foolhardy to A, go for the full million and B, capitalize it. I'm happy with $200,000 for a consultant study.
Okay. Now, how do we work that? Do we vote this down and then offer up an amendment elsewhere to try and provide them the funds to go do the appropriate study to find out how we should move forward, or do we just cut out the funding entirely and leave it to them? Yes, Madam Chair.
We have two more people who want to make comments, so maybe that will help educate on this. Adam?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm finding myself having very strong feelings and a bit of a visceral reaction to this. I use the transfer station on a weekly basis. I see no problems with the operation of that facility. I don't see any real degradation or deterioration or serious problem with the operations that go on there that couldn't be fixed for less than $1 million. I can't even fathom spending $1 million to do a design study on a public works facility. And on the face of it, a $32 million project in such a facility is unconscionable, in my opinion. I feel very strongly about this, and I absolutely would be against giving $1 million to do a study on this project when we typically spend, $100,000, $200,000 or less to do, design work projects on larger traffic-oriented projects that really affect, public safety and other issues. I would be 100% against spending even $10 million to do work at that facility, let alone 30.
And my understanding is that the $32 million number is to remediate not just the DPW building, but the hut and change and resealing the floor of the actual pit and a couple of other things. But still, $32 million for that campus.
I'm sorry, the DPW building, is that the big long thing we never see where they have the hazardous waste day? The one that you get to off of, I think, the Forest?
The one that you have to get out, yeah, correct. The one that you have to get off of Forest Street. So
Adam, we're not just talking what you see from the transfer station.
True, but still, I can't imagine. I mean, one of the arguments is we have a couple $1 million worth of vehicles. Okay, how many iterations of a couple $1 million of vehicles can we go through over the next 30 years with a $32 million project? Given that,
I'm sorry, 1 second. Roland, did you want to say something?
When you look at the total cost of $32 million, you'd look at the schools. We're spending $64 million and we're getting a bigger bang for the buck, in my opinion. The hut, I believe what Jason's talking about is when you first drive in where that can be done, but that's not that much money. That thing. The other one where you throw your trash into, I've suggested multiple times that we go to compactors like Hingham has. You go up, you throw your trash into a compactor, it compacts in the back of the truck. You're not running the big giant excavator around. You don't have the big giant building. You have 5 or 6 of those. It's super efficient. It's super quick. You drive up, you throw your stuff in, a tenant hits the button, and it pushes it in the back of the truck. The way we're doing it is outdated. I said the same thing for the compost. There's a compost machine that I went into. I told Jim Snyder Grant, much better way to do it is having somebody come collect it. And all these things are short money compared to spending $32 million. And now I understand the DPW building needs help. But could it be expanded for a lot less? Could it be renovated for a lot less? Do we need a brand new building? And that's where I think a study is. But a study at $1 million, it's a lot of money. And I agree with Steve, $200,000, even $250,000 to do a study. A lot more palatable, especially to the taxpayer. We just spent a lot of money on a fire station, and that's what, $10 or $12 million? We're building a fire station with a bunch of other facilities parts in it, and they want $32 million to do a DPW building. So,
I think Mr. Barrett would like to
I struggle with
something,
that.
or is that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In terms of the feasibility study, could we share that at some point, with the committee?
Certainly.
I don't think that's been done yet. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but we could share that feasibility study with the committee.
So it is public knowledge what the results of the independent third-party review of the area is. We have that 168-page document that we can all view. This is a request for another $1 million to move forward with towards design. And I see other hands were raised. I believe, Madam Chair, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry, but could you clarify, since you're talking about it, this would be advancing that design. This would be doing a design based on that study, not redoing part of the study, correct?
Well, I'm trying to read the exact language of the
I
article.
can read it right now if you'd like.
The proposed funding will allow the project to proceed to the next phase of the design. If that is indeed the plan, then we have to stop this now. I was hoping to be a little more flexible and let them try and repurpose the money for finding a more creative solution. But if indeed it's to move this design forward, then I'm going to have to be completely against it. There are other hands raised, Madam Chair.
Mike.
Yeah, I think clearly the DPW site needs, the entire site needs some attention. You know, they're talking about access, different types of access, the traffic patterns within the site. Some of the buildings have really outlived their useful life. There's some major equipment issues that they're talking about. And I think, $1 million for at least to do some engineering and feasibility studies is quite reasonable. These things are so specialized that you just, I didn't know we had so many environmental engineers on our committee that, can price these things out off the top of their head. That's, I'm very impressed. But, I think we need to let the experts come up with some strategies, some alternatives, some schematics on what needs to happen with the transfer station and the entire DPW site, and then we'll, once that first phase is done, then we can see what happens next. We might be satisfied with the plan, or we can reject it, or we can approve it, or whatever. But at least let them go through the first phase.
Well, I think that's the question right now, Mike, is whether they have. They say that a feasibility study has been done, and there's an implication that this would be moving on to the design phase.
All right, well, then let them do that. Then, because it's still, at this point, it's still pencil and paper. It's not firm construction or anything like that. As long as it's, a pencil and paper design, let them move forward.
But in the past, once we have let them move forward, then it's a tacit approval that we're willing to go down the path towards a $32 million renovation, and I am not prepared to approve that at this time.
Well, let them justify the $32 million. We don't know. Let them make their case. It's easy to make a decision a mile away with really no facts, no figures, no hard data. Just let them make their case, and judge it at that point. Killing it right now is kind of premature. Just my opinion.
Christine.
Thanks. I listened to part of the meeting where they were presented the initial design that came at $32 million. I distinctly remember agreeing with the select board, Jim Snyder-Grant, who immediately said that we could not afford that number. I don't think they took any vote to approve or move forward. We have a couple of select board members watching. Is it possible to get some clarity maybe on what exactly a recommended vote for this $1 million would go towards? Even though I understand that Dean is the actual member on the article. If Jim or David could possibly clarify.
Okay. Mr. Martin.
Hi, it is just to go forward with the detailed design. There are a bunch of parts of this plan that total the 32 million, and also in this particular 32 million total includes contingencies and everything. The actual building costs are about half that. It doesn't include the site costs or the other costs. The biggest cost is the DPW building, which would be all new. The transfer station would be, basically renovated with pieces of the roof and the ceiling and stuff are hanging down. The DPW building's about 50 years old. The walls are cracking. It's really cannot be renovated, and it's a kind of equivalent to renovating Douglas. If someone was comparing it to the school, renovating Douglas or putting up a new building. So I don't know if there are other questions. They actually, though, to Roland's point, did a study of the truck-based compactors, and actually what we do now is more efficient, even though it might not seem so, because the trash is compacted to a greater extent, and so the transportation costs are less. So what we do now is more efficient than the truck-based compactors. We could switch to the truck-based compactors, but there would be more transportation costs.
So David, is your understanding that if we move forward with this $1 million, it's with the intention of moving forward in such a way as to accomplish the project as it was originally presented to you, or to look into other ways to solve? The latter, Christine, to figure out what the design is, and that would include, as we do for every project, not only public hearings but presentations to boards and committees and that are relevant to this project, including yourselves, and getting feedback as to what we should do. There are a number of alternatives that were presented to the select board, and in that they just kind of chose one that they put the costs against. But even if you look through that multi-page plan, there are different possibilities for the siting of buildings, or how many buildings, or whether how the covered parking for the trucks we have would work, or where the servicing would be done for the town vehicles, things like that. So there it's really to develop the detailed plans, Okay.
Including feedback.
So this is not a tacit all in on the $32 million plan.
No, this was just trying to be honest with what it was going to
Potentially.
Right.
Potentially cost if we did all the things with all the bells and whistles.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do
Adam?
have-
I'm sorry. Okay, Adam.
Yeah, I'd really like to see more detail on what we get for the $1 million. I would not support spending $1 million to plan something that would cost that much, which would be unaffordable in my opinion. And without at least getting an itemized statement of what are we getting for $1 million.
Mr. Martin, can you respond to that?
There is some detail in the multi-page feasibility study, but I don't know those things off the top of my head enough to really answer your questions. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would think that should be in the article so that the townsfolk can read it.
So, Madam Chairwoman, where I have I respect what Mr. Martin said, Select Board Member Martin said about this $1 million being able to be used for multiple different components of an overall project. But it gets nefarious because the language of the article specifically says this proposed funding will allow the project to proceed to the next phase of the design. I don't believe we have an agreed upon design. So I'm curious, I'm worried that this $1 million will be pigeonholed for a specific design rather than an overarching revamp and review, because I really don't want us to be on the path to spending $32 million on this one aspect of town resources.
So also, just to clarify, this is to identify the preferred design.
It's not what it says in the article.
Yeah, I suspect rewording of the article, or the article wording, is
I can
First,
certainly
we'll have a
talk, I can certainly talk with the town manager about wording the article. And in fact, if you want to put in your recommendation in your motion, you know, what you'd like to see, I'd be happy to take that back, or I'm happy to take that back and you vote on it at your next meeting, or whatever you guys would like me to do.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I still can't get over the fact that, you know, in 2015, it was a $9 million issue, and in March of 2021, it was a $10 million issue, and you know, here we are in June, and it's a $32 million issue, and I just can't get over the jump. So I'm perfectly willing, as Jason has suggested. I don't think he suggested it, but as Dave just suggested, that we defer on this one and get some more information. If we defer, it's going to show up in the warrant as deferred. But while I don't want to stop progress on a project that's necessary, if it was Jim Snyder Grant that said we can't afford a selectmen's meeting, I tend to agree. There's the feasibility, there's the overall evaluation, but this is the size of our annual budget on the town side. This one requires a little longer term financial planning to go with the long-term planning around the facility. So I would say if Chair desires, I could make a motion to defer on this one.
I would prefer that we make a motion to not recommend.
I would second that.
To see if they can't come back with a different plan that we're willing to get behind. So it might take some negotiations over the next very short period of time so that they can come back with a different number and a different scope that we can get behind between now and June 21st. So, Steve, I don't mean to cut you off. Well, I do mean to cut you off.
Well, you did. And if I heard it correctly, Adam seconded your cutting me off. So I think there's been a motion and a second on the floor.
For debate, Madam Chairman, I would like to say that I would like to recommend that we immediately follow up. If this motion carries, I recommend that we immediately follow up with a conversation about, very short one because it's 9 o'clock already, a very short conversation about how much money we would like to, negotiate and authorize that the Board of Selectmen take a look at for coming back with a different scope in the budget book.
I would like to just remind everyone that we have the option of, if the select board were to come back with a language that made it more clear what was being chosen here, we have a meeting right before the actual town meeting in which we can change our recommendation.
Absolutely, and that would be the motion if indeed the scope and the number has changed.
Sahana?
Since Steve already made the motion first,
He has not. Hold on.
He did
He hasn't made.
Okay.
Jason has made a motion, which was seconded, but Steve offered to make a motion now.
So can Jason, can you?
I was polite, Sahana, and I asked the chair permission.
And I cut him off.
Yeah.
Can you repeat your motion, Jason?
The motion is to not recommend the $1 million for the Public Works facility and transfer station design.
Adam has seconded. Discussion? Mr. Martin, I'm gonna take you off for now.
Shall we vote?
So I would like to ask an opinion about something. I would consider supporting this if it didn't sound like this was just continuing the march forward. Is it better in that case to defer regarding what is written? What we're doing it here is we're writing something in the warrant, and we then can go back and in the meeting potentially change what we say. So from my point of view, defer makes it seem like we are still open to considering it. What I think Jason is saying is he is not open to considering this number, regardless of what it's for.
I think it's too much. I'd like to see a smaller number and a different scope.
And I'm opposed to considering it certainly the way that it's worded, which it's worded as a design plan, as if to say, we're ready to move forward with our design as discussed. And this is going to give us architectural drawings, plans, and a way forward. That's the way it's written.
If it was a smaller number, would that change things for you?
For me, it would need to be not only a smaller number, but a different description. A description that doesn't say we're moving forward with a design and construction.
As I mentioned earlier, Madam Chair, I'm going to immediately follow this up with a recommendation to go back and negotiate a number, either 200 or 250,000, with a much wider remit, a scope of saying that they're going to truly scrub and scour the possibilities, because we don't see a $32 million path to solution on this project.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And we have discussed, unless there's further discussion, we will move on to vote. The motion is to not recommend this line item in this
Article 4, Section A, DPW transfer station design. Christie.
You're saying not recommend, I'll say aye.
Christine.
Aye.
Dave.
All right.
Jason.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Roland.
That was an aye.
How can you tell?
Is it aye?
Because I can see his mouth.
Okay. Sahana.
What was that?
Sahana.
I'll go with an aye.
Steve.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes.
can I get a sense of the committee to go back to the Board of Selectmen and ask for a change in scope and potentially negotiate a smaller number for investigating the DPW?
You certainly may, but I require you to start calling them the select board.
Very well.
Can we listen to Christine and Steve first? I'm sorry, you wanted sense of the committee. That would be Christine.
I think we've made ourselves clear, and I think we can. I don't want to pick a number out of the air. I don't know how much it should be. I want to hear a real scope and a real number and a why, and then fine, let's deal with that. But I don't want to just pick a number.
Very well.
Steve?
Yeah, I agree with Christine. I'm much more in Adam's camp on this. I want to see the wording changed to indicate they're going to take another look at this. And if they need to spend the $1 million, I guess, okay. But I don't want to get into negotiating a back and forth, this number or that number. I want to get them looking at the right problem. And then I'll worry about how much it's going to cost.
Dave?
Yeah, I just add to that the word alternatives would be good to hear. Is the study that looks at different alternatives, and again, not fixating on the 32 million, but I think that's an eye popper for all of us. And so I'm with the wording and the scope of the article, but in the scope, I would like to see the consideration of alternatives to building a brand new facility from the ground up.
I would like to point out that I think we ran into a similar problem where I was mainly the issue with the fire station. This is another large-scale project where the town is moving forward with it at an expensive rate without having discussed it more explicitly with us. And I think I've lost everyone.
No, we can still hear you.
Oh, but we lost her.
Now we lost her.
We can still hear you
know
though.
that was going to happen.
Adam, why don't you go ahead and speak while we're waiting for Christy?
Sure, I would highly recommend that as many of us as
Hold on, am I
possible.
back?
Oh, she's back.
Oh, good.
You're
Sorry about
back. Sorry, Adam, I tried.
That's all right.
that. I was just saying I would like the town to come to us earlier in the process to get support for large projects like this.
Wholeheartedly agree.
I have two comments, if I could speak now, Christine.
Certainly.
First is that I would recommend that as many of us as possible need to go and take a walking, talking tour of this project and what the problems are, get a better sense, and with some of the people that have been involved in the design phase to date, to find out, what is the scope, be able to put some eyes on it. I think that's very helpful to people. The second comment I wanted to make, which is kind of in line with what you just said, Christy, is that I see an awful lot of cases where the town is going to the select board with some of these really large dollar item projects and getting approval before they've ever even considered bringing it to FinCom, and before FinCom has had a chance to do any due diligence on behalf of the taxpayers. And I think that's the wrong way around.
I have no issue with doing it in that order. My issue is with doing it in that order and then bringing it to town meeting before we've had a chance to help rein in the scope and view it in the larger context. They're asking us to make a recommendation on the financial impact of something that we have not been given a chance to learn much about. Steve, you have a thought there? No? You look like you have a thought.
Thoughts go through my head all the time, Christine. Some are worth sharing and some are not. This comes back to, in March we had a presentation of the 10-year capital plan, and nothing like this was in it, which tells me there's been a significant change somewhere along the line. And that, you're right, has not been discussed. Not with us.
I don't want to speak out of order, but I did get a little sense that some of the select board was surprised by the presentation a week and a half or so ago as well.
Okay, I think we've said our piece on this one. I think we've given enough guidance to those select board members who are in attendance tonight. And with your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to move on to pedestrian lights.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did you want to vote there? I don't think we voted. Did we vote?
Yes, for a sense of the committee, I got a sense.
Oh, yes, thank you.
The Kelly's Corner pedestrian lights is the next topic. I believe you held it, Madam Chair. Speak to it first.
Certainly. We're talking about $1 million for lights for an area that I do not honestly believe will be used, particularly by the broader town in the evening when the lights are useful. Thereby making this a aesthetic expense. The reason for my comment is that there is no public parking available in that area, and I have heard no indication of there being public parking added. I know that I cannot park at Not Your Average Joe's and then walk to Starbucks. That would be a right for them, give them a right to tow me. So there is a limited area, a population of people who can walk there, but it's not part of the broader traffic improvement and beautification of the area, in my mind, to the scope of spending $1 million on it. West Acton, which I think is in many ways what we would hope this would become, has public parking and doesn't have lights such as this, does not have pedestrian lights. So I am not supportive of this very large number. Jason.
I would also like to state that I do not want to fund a project of this size for lighting for the Kelly's Corner area. I believe that this is a case of if we build it, they will come. There is no guarantee that they're going to come. The plan of putting in all this pedestrian lighting to make a cohesive downtown walkable area is being built around a currently empty lot. While I absolutely share in the hopes of a vibrant, commercial area in Kelly's Corner. We have no control over it at this time. There's no guarantee of it happening. I am sympathetic to the concept of we have to spend the money now, or we're not going to get the state match. This is a 40% levered solution. We're paying 60%. This state is paying 40%.
Well, hold on. That's for the entire project. This is entirely outside of it.
Sure. Very well. Very well. Even worse. My concern is that we are going to rush to put something in now while it's quote unquote cheaper to do it now, but it's only cheaper to do it now if we're ever going to use it. And I don't see any guarantee that we're ever going to use it. And certainly not guarantee that we're going to use it in the next 10 years, which is a significant chunk of the average person staying in town. Don't worry, I'll be here for 20, but not everyone stays in the town for 20, 30 years at a time. And this is also going to, I think this is way too large a project to be something that can be said to be good for the students leaving at the end of the school day. So for that reason, I'm also going to be voting against this.
Adam, is your hand still intended to be up, or is it from previous?
No, it is, but
Go
I
ahead.
want to be wishy-washy, if I may, and say that I'm very torn on this subject. I can see benefits to the lighting program, particularly in the wintertime when it gets dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and there's students walking hitherto from the school into those areas. I have to say I was pleasantly surprised with the presentation we were giving when I was able to verify that the lights didn't go as far up and down and side to side from the intersection as I had originally thought that they did, which, you know, at least made in my mind that we weren't completely wasting money on lights that were far outreaching usefulness. I would just add that I think the intended ambiance of the lighting might do something for attracting business to that part of town. Difficult to be 100% sure. It's maybe a little bit along the same lines of the, you know, vacant storefront type grant situation. A little bit what Jason says, if you build it, they will come. Well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I'm a little bit torn about this. I'm not really certain how to vote, but in general, I think I like the lighting design.
Christine.
I like the lights. And I like the idea of having that area be walkable and pretty. And I do think it'll get used. That's all.
Mike.
Yeah, I think we need to pick our battles, and this is not one you want to fight. I think they worked very hard, and a lot of smart people came up with that design. And I think your issue is not all the lighting, just maybe.
No, I at this point in time, I have an issue with all of the lighting.
Well, I don't. So let's vote.
Yeah. Steve.
I'm also ambivalent on this one. I can see why, if the vision for Kelly's Corner were to come true, this would be a terrific thing to have. But I've been in town 28 years, and we've been talking about Kelly's Corner for every one of those years, and nothing much has changed. And I do get concerned about the fact that we don't control the property. We don't have any idea what's going in on the Kmart lot. I think that's the only McDonald's I've ever seen fail. And it's still vacant all these years later. And so I love the vision that Kelly's Corner has. And I'd love to see it come true. I think it's coming into the less probable than not after, I mean, Kmart's, for years we worried about what would happen when Kmart, left. Well, they've been pretty much gone for a couple of years, and, nothing's happened. So I'm just, why put streetlights there and not everywhere else in town? I agree they're attractive, but what, right now we'd be lighting a vacant lot in a bowling alley. Where's the payback there? So, I don't know. I haven't decided, so I was just stalling to keep the vote.
I would be much more in support of this personally if there was any plan for public parking. Because I can't go enjoy it. I would love to have somewhere that I could walk around, but I'm not walking there from here. And like I said, I can't have dinner at your average Joe's and go get a coffee afterwards at Starbucks without driving.
Well, you got your dog. You're going to take a dog for a walk. That's an easy walk.
I'm not taking my dog down there.
Great ambience for you to do that at night.
Christine.
Did I miss something? We're talking about just the lights around Kmart, but it was my understanding the lights would be on Community Way, and that they would be around Roach Brothers and CVS and by the crosswalks and up on the other side by Not Your Average Joe's. And I mean, I appreciate.
No. They won't be there.
They won't be up at that side? Okay.
Yeah, they're not allowed to be because in order to not encroach in the wall in front of the Hosmer house, we had to narrow that side of it. So that the plantings and the lovely sidewalk they did, that's all
the rest of it. And you know, I appreciate that Mr. Noon will believe it when it actually happens. And I imagine that if we were ripping up and reconstructing in other areas, we would be looking into streetlights there as well. It just happens to be that we're ripping up and reconstructing. What we hope is going to be a safer, more friendly, visually appealing, more walkable area. It's a big investment. It's one we can't make after the fact. And I like the lights.
Roland. You're quiet again.
Oh, I like the fact that it's leveraged. The state's giving us money to do it.
They're not giving us money to do this.
They're not giving us money to do they're paying for the infrastructure. They're paying for some of the infrastructure.
Right. So if we decide to do it later on,
Gotcha.
we wouldn't have that.
Correct.
So it is leveraged in that aspect of it. And that's why I'm in favor of it.
Can I make a motion that we recommend this article?
Second.
This subsection of the article.
This subsection of this article.
Article 4, Section B, Kelly's Corner Pedestrian Lighting Plan. Does that sum it up?
Yes. I have to say I am shocked. In my mind, this is window dressing. The idea that this much of the committee is in support of spending $1 million on window dressing for an area that is not going to be walkable for the vast majority of the population.
You know, I'm surprised that you're against this. It's shocking. It is shocking.
I am fully supportive of everything else in the project, but I think it is delusional to think that this will become an evening walkable area by people who are not the immediate neighbors. I would love to be wrong. I would love if there was a plan here to add street parking or add a public parking lot. I would be fully supportive of this plan, but $1 million is a lot of money.
There's all the parking at the Roach Brothers Plaza and at the
that is illegal to use. That is fully owned by the owner of that parking lot. They have absolutely no need, including having signs posted that they can tow you at will. This is not, you're not supposed
Sorry,
to.
I've just never seen I've never seen the signs in those particular parking lots.
That's private property.
It is, but again, unless signs are posted, then it's typically done. I've never seen the signs in those particular.
But I think it's backwards to think that we can use those parking lots to go to other businesses. I've been in Not Your Average Joe's where I've had to park behind because the lot's been full. I don't think one can expect to park there. Maybe the Hosmer house. I mean, you can park at Kmart right now, but that's hopefully not going to be that way for much longer. And the plans I've seen, none of the plans I've seen have included public parking. So I'm concerned about spending money, like I said, that's only going to be usable by this small population. I also happen to think that the pedestrian lights are rather ugly, but I know Kristen and I disagree.
Moved and seconded.
So we have a vote, and we have a motion and a second. Would you like to call the roll?
Christie.
Nay.
Christine.
Aye.
Dave.
Dave? Let's go back to him.
Dave. Jason.
Nay.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
Was that an aye? Aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
Steve,
Nay.
and I vote aye.
Dave, are you back?
Dave's vote could be a moot point.
Yeah.
Motion carries.
Until you hear from David.
I think his vote won't
It would
change.
be
the-
We got 5
There
votes.
was 5 ayes and 3 nays at this point.
Very well. That
Alright.
concludes Article 4. I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Boot Article 4 down here.
Did we discuss Article 5? That's the wastewater treatment.
Yeah. Last time.
At length.
Yeah, the next unvoted article that I have on my list is Article 10, sidewalk acquisition 74 to 78 Taylor Road.
Who's that?
It
That's
says
me.
Christine Russell.
Yeah, they don't have the language for that yet. We're gonna have to defer. It's just not ready.
Right? Next item is Article 11, amend zoning bylaws for drive-up windows. That's Sahana's.
I make a motion that we recommend the article.
Could you
I'll second
please
that.
explain it?
Hold on.
I just mean more the history of it. I presume it's saying that people have opened banks.
Yeah, so from what I have learned from, there were about 1,000 people who did take the survey for the drive-through windows. And I think it's about 65 to 75% of the demographic wanted the drive-throughs. More women wanted it than men. And there are a few merchants in the West Acton that were against it. The Historical Society is against it, but the Design Review Board is sort of okay with it. And I think this is something that is good for the town. If you're looking at it financially, economically, this is maybe we can retain some of the customers from driving up to our neighboring towns for drive-throughs. So I think this is something that's beneficial for the town, and I would say that we should be voting yes for this. Am I stalling? Any questions? Everybody was so quiet.
That was a motion to recommend. I don't believe I've heard a second yet.
I second
Second.
it.
All right.
Lots of seconds.
Steve?
Yeah, the committee has a long history on this issue. And Herman Kalbakoff, who was a longtime member of the FinCom, a select, what do you call them in the past, Christy? Can you still call them select men?
Yes.
Okay. And actually a school committee member for a while. So he was one of the few people in Acton history that did the triple header. And I just ran into him a couple weeks ago, and he moved out of town a few years ago. And I told him this was on the warrant, and he wanted the article actually named after him. Because he did his own citizens petition when he was on FinCom a few years ago to try and get drive-up windows. And it was defeated at town meeting. I do believe the pandemic has changed things in terms of drive-up windows. And I can say as the grandfather of 2 young women that have babies, drive-up windows are real convenient when you have small children in the car. And they're also convenient for elderly people. Not that I have any trouble getting around, but certainly getting in and out of your car in the winter and things like that is difficult sometimes. So I'm totally in support of this.
Christine? You're muted.
I know, I didn't want to unmute. I agree with everything Steve said. I think that they're super convenient. I think there are plenty of times when there's nothing you want more than to drive through the pharmacy and not go into the dang building because you feel like garbage. And I don't think this is the last pandemic we're going to see in our lifetime. And I think that an ounce of prevention in this case will be well worth it.
While I won't take my dogs to the dog park, I will happily go through the drive-in with them. Or drive through, yeah.
Well,
we
lighted
re-
drive-through.
Are we ready for a vote? I believe we are. Adam?
Christie,
I'm sorry, we're voting to recommend, correct? I
correct.
say aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
Aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Adam, you can finish and then I have a point of order.
I was just going to go on to the next article on my list.
Okay, one moment. Jim Snyder Grant has pointed out that since we did not pass the entirety of Article 4, and we can only have one position on Article 4.
Why is that?
That's not true. That's not
Not
true.
true.
We have multiple times have we said that we recommend and that we not recommend a sub-article.
So they have the ability to print that in the bottom of the warrant?
Yes, and that has happened numerous
Yes.
times in the last 6 years.
Alrighty then, we can.
You might recall this came up with the CPC. We
Yeah.
specifically did not recommend the church tower.
Awesome.
We do have an explanation from Mark Hall there, so I think it's fine.
We can state recommend items
Yeah.
X, comma, Y, not recommend items V, comma, W, or we can indicate a recommendation under each item. Great, excellent.
All right. What's up next, Adam?
Article 10, sidewalk acquisition.
No, we didn't. That one doesn't have language.
Oh, God.
We just did Article 11.
Let me just make a note on this. Let me color this a different color. There.
Should we say defer for that one? Is that how that works?
We're gonna have to because we're not gonna. There are no dollars. Maybe we'll get a chance to vote on it right before.
I'm just wondering what they write in the warrant.
Yeah, defer would be what, well, we can
If we
make a
don't-
motion to defer.
Automatic deferral.
It's an automatic deferral if we don't?
We don't say anything at all, it's an automatic deferral.
Okay, let's do that. It's quicker.
So the next article then would be Article 12, the release of restriction at 127 Strawberry Hill Road, which is my article, and was originally, did not say on the tin what it was meant to do. What this is an agreement between the town and the landowner at 127 Strawberry Hill Road, whereby the landowner gets a release of restriction of I think a 200-foot setback in the event that they subdivide their property. And in exchange, the town gets a parcel or a permanent easement to a portion of that 127 Strawberry Hill Road for the betterment of the Strawberry Hill Road Pope Road intersection for the purpose of safety, visibility, walkability, so on and so forth. The purpose of this article then would be to save the town any eventual additional costs of trying to legally obtain that right of way. And then in exchange, it just gives the property owner a little bit more leeway and room to plan if ever they wanted to subdivide. And the town council weighed in and said that this the 200-foot setback is probably not enforceable anyway. It was made it during a special time in real estate history in Acton and probably wouldn't stand up in court anyway. So the explanation given to me is that by not engaging in this agreement with the landowner, that then to improve public safety for that intersection might cost the town more money down the road.
Does anyone remember our discussion from last year when this came up again or previously?
We recommended it last year, but it got shut down at town meeting.
Yeah, and in September when it was on the warrant, it was written the same way it was written a week ago. But as of today, Mark Hall sent a very nice, very specific and much more purposeful description on it that I think the town and the voters will understand a little better. And if it's something that the town wants, I think they'll have a better chance of getting it at this point. So I would like to make a motion to recommend Article 12, the release of restriction for 127 Strawberry Hill Road.
Second.
The logic being that it's unenforceable to do anything else.
Well, and it saves the town money to improve the safety of that intersection.
Because this will lead to another house.
Yeah, probably so. I don't know for sure. Who did the second on that?
I did.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to discuss anything? Right, Adam, go ahead.
Christie,
Aye. So we're recommending, correct?
motion to recommend, yes.
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
Aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The next warrant I have is warrant number 15, authorization payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the solar facility.
I could speak to this one. So a few years ago, the town entered into these pilot agreements for town-owned property, and this authorization would give the town the same ability to do that for non-town-owned property. And so essentially what a pilot agreement is that when a solar developer wants to put panels and equipment on a piece of property, what they look for is some kind of stability in their tax rate and so on and so forth, because they're obviously rating this out to certain customers and clients of theirs. And by not having the stability, they could get into a lot of trouble relatively quickly. So what the town does is enter into these agreements for 20 years where they essentially take the tax base and grow it at an escalator over that time. And that's the set payment over that. So it's a payment in lieu of taxes. What the town loses is some flexibility on adjusting that rate up or down over that time period of the agreement. But what they get instead is the ability to have a known payment stream over a time period, the ability to put solar power, et cetera, on the property, and so on and so forth. So I'm regurgitating what the town manager was kind enough to explain to me about the past agreements. I think this seems innocuous enough. Essentially, it does give the town and the town manager and the select board the ability to enter into these pilot agreements with owners of property for non-town-owned land. And again, subject to their discretion on how these contracts are created, but generally speaking, the economics should be pretty moot to the town, but you do get the ability to know what those payments are going to be over time. So, there's a few concerns here. If the property, if the taxes go up greater or they're down lower, et cetera, as is true with anything. I mean, I don't believe we really have much of a crystal ball to see into the future, but the way he's explained it to me is the escalator of 2.5% would capture that. And so again, to the town, from the town's perspective, this should generally be pretty moot. And just a couple examples of the town-owned property where they have these facilities. There's a water district, a landfill, and the fire station. The private lands that they're looking to get into these agreements with are the Knox Trail and W.R. Grace, for example. So I think it's from my understanding of this, I feel comfortable recommending the article. That said, when you do think about these things, I think in our view in the Finance Committee, it's easy to get a little paranoid and think, what are the risks? How could this happen? This could happen, and so on and so forth. And to that, I generally, do give some discretion and credibility to the board and the town manager for just, understanding and putting the economics of the town forward in representing the town taxpayer. So all that said, I've given you everything that I know on the article. I was going to make a motion to recommend it. If there are any further questions, we would have to defer that to either the town manager or Jim Snyder-Grant if he's available to answer those.
I do have a question, if I may.
Certainly.
So if I read this properly, the purpose of this is to set a predictable price for the developer to encourage the creation of these photovoltaic resources. And what this is costing the town is the delta between what the new taxable value of the land would be minus the agreed upon price, correct? So this is a way of the town trying to fix a fee while trying to provide an incentive for the building of photovoltaic arrays, correct?
Yes, and it should, in theory, be captured by the escalators that they set in the contract. Again, he used the number 2.5%. So you're right, though. But if there was a delta 5-8 years from now, in positive or negative, one party would eat the difference between that, and that's just the nature of it. But the stability of the paying of the taxes and knowing that for a 20-year time period gives the operator of these facilities the ability to sell the rates and sell solar power without having another thing that could go up or down on them and their input costs, and stabilizes it for them.
Taxes always go up more than 2.5%.
Yeah, I mean, my bill personally has gone up 3% since I think I lived in town, maybe a little over. I think I looked in Jim Snyder-Grant is available if he had any ability to further answer these questions, but I do think.
Would that be the 2.5%? That's just an escalator on the taxes. Would there be a reset? Is there the concept of a reset at some point?
I believe I wrote in my note that
like at the end of the period?
Yeah, I mean at the end of 20 years, but I believe there were some cases where the contract could be renegotiated before the end of the time period. I don't actually have that note in front of me right now. So again, I think just the mechanics of this, and I certainly want to respect the committee's questions, but I think there's a lot of ways that this could be overanalyzed, just saying that as an analyst myself. And again, it's really giving the town manager and the select board the ability to negotiate these 20-year contracts on non-town owned property, which they currently have it for town owned property, which is less. I see your questions, and I would, if we have too many of them, I would ask John to maybe he answered most of mine, but he had I think ended up being a conflict or is not available now.
Do you know if the town would have any say over where these projects go? I'm thinking there's that property open field on the corner of Brook Street and Main Street. Wouldn't be a bad place for it, not sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
it doesn't currently make sense.
Zoning or planning sorts of questions and how abutters, et cetera, could be notified and have this allowed. I see Jim's available. He may be able to answer some of those questions. I know John stepped me through the mechanics of the math, and that's what I had gotten comfortable with on the economics of it. But these are good questions that maybe Jim could help with.
Would we like to hear from Jim? Okay.
I would.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, everybody. There's actually some of the finance stuff actually Steve Barrett could answer, but let me start you off with some of these. Pilot agreements, are at least the ones we've done so far, have covered both the personal property, the equipment itself, as well as the real estate. So one of the advantages of having a pilot agreement from the town's point of view is that we don't have to go through a formal revaluation of the equipment each cycle of revaluation. And in fact, equipment, as you know, depreciates. So typically, if we were revaluing it, it would be falling over time. So a 2.5% escalator is a reasonable rule of thumb for this mix of real property and personal property that's being taxed. The other question was about the control over of the locations of these operations. Industrial scale solar is allowed by right in certain of our zoning districts, but not most of them, and it would require a permit from the planning board in any case. So there's a conventional permitting process for the facility, and then there's the follow-up of negotiating a pilot agreement. So last year at the town meeting, the town meeting voted easily to give the select board and the town manager the ability to negotiate a particular pilot agreement. That was one of the water district solar arrangements. So this would be a more general extension of that, which would be, well, since you overwhelmingly approved it last time for this particular project, why don't we save your time and we'll just say in the future it'll be fine for the manager and the board to approve these agreements.
Jason?
That 2.5 number is not set in stone, right? That's going to be negotiated with every single developer, correct?
That is my understanding, yes. David, did you get a different understanding?
No, I think John used it as a generalization.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm loath to say I trust other people, but I understand why.
That's my point.
But I would also suggest that rather than just go with a overly simplified 2.5 number that came from Prop 2.5, I would much prefer we give the guidance to the town and the select board that they take a look at what's been going on for the last 5 years, 5-year moving average of how much the taxes have actually gone up, and use that as the accelerator. So rather than just stick to the overly simplified 2.5 number.
Jim, could you explain the equipment depreciation idea? Do we own the equipment?
No, but the developer does. And the developer is paying personal property taxes on that.
But they're also paying it on the land, correct?
Yes, both.
And that land property, taxes, we would have gotten that regardless.
Right. It's the tricky case is when it's a nonprofit entity like the water district that owns the land. So they would normally not be paying real property taxes on it. But the tax law says that if a developer, if the water district, for example, makes an arrangement with a developer to put up these panels, then the property also becomes taxable.
I'm having a bit of a hard time here. We have a 99% payment rate, thereabouts, on taxes.
Right.
Why is it beneficial to us to do something like this that would decrease our taxes and gives us, as the populace, the town members, less control over where these not attractive projects go?
I guess I want to challenge the notion that this is necessarily a reduction in the amount of income to the town. If in the absence of a pilot agreement, the town has to revalue the personal property and the real estate every time they have to do a revaluation, and we don't know ahead of time if that's going to cause if that would be an increase or a decrease, and we don't know ahead of time if the arrangement would cause overall a reduction or an increase in the amount of taxes. The intent is to make it roughly match. And the intent is not to lose money. And the intent is not to reduce the income, but just simply make it more predictable and to reduce the cost for the town of having to do the revaluation.
But you're moving the power that town meeting has over where these projects are acceptable to town members.
No. These projects themselves get approved through the same process that they always have, which is there's a planning board process, for a special site permit.
But that's not the same as town meeting.
Correct. Like the solar project on the W.R. Graceland and the solar projects at the Acton Water District did not go through a formal vote at town meeting.
I thought the water district did. It did not.
The only thing that happened with the Water District project is that the town gave after the permitting had been done, the town meeting gave the select board the right to, they gave the town manager the right to negotiate the details of the pilot agreement.
So this would not change that. The whomever could still decide to do one of these projects. What would happen if the town manager had not been given permission to negotiate?
Oh, it just would have taken longer. It just would have, the negotiated pilot agreement would have had to come back to town meeting for a vote.
Steve?
Yeah, let me try and clarify something here. Yeah, the land is the land, and somebody's going to pay the taxes on the land regardless. So now you're talking about somebody investing a whole lot of money in equipment on this land, which is going to increase the amount of taxes that the town can put on this parcel. However, that's the same as any of us. Your house is on a plot of land, and you have a house on it, and they're valued. Actually, they're valued separately, but you pay taxes on the whole thing. Your house never really depreciates. It gets reassessed based on what people are willing to pay for it every few years, and it seldom goes down. On the other hand, this equipment will depreciate much like your car does on the excise tax every year. So if we lock in an amount that escalates 2.5% a year, in the long run, we're probably going to be better off.
Right.
Yep.
Did you? Any other questions?
Yeah, maybe just one for Jim is just, to the concerns and maybe to yours, Christy, that this is outside of the scope of town meeting and it's more of a general letting the select board and town manager do this. I mean, technically, if the select board had a solar project they were very favorable on, this could be negotiated outside of the scope of that, and we're assuming it's at reasonable market rates, like 2.5% or 3% or whatever the number is. But in theory, I mean, Jim, you could negotiate a 1% escalator in there, and they could say that sounds great, and because you guys really love the project and we're going to do all these wonderful things. It does. I mean, there is some potential, and again, I don't mean this against any of our colleagues around town, but just as a finance person, you have to look at these, the future use of this, a more broad agreement that gives a lot of flexibility to the select board and town manager to avoid a town meeting and to discuss these issues.
Can I respond?
Please.
Okay. I think what we forgot to explain was that the Department of Revenue has to review, has a review capability on any of these pilot agreements, and although their guidance is has not been turned into formal regulations, it's quite clear from the cases that have come before the DOR that there are very clear limits on what we're allowed to do with a pilot. So, for example, with the Acton Water District, we love to have a cooperative relationship with the Acton Water District. It would have been awesome to charge them not so much because, if we charge them more money, that just costs them more. They turn around and have to raise their rates, which then costs the Acton taxpayers more for their water. So it's sort of a circular taxation. We had no motive to have a high pilot agreement, but it was clear from conversations with the DOR that we couldn't get away with just arbitrarily reducing that amount. So there's room for negotiation, but it's not the Wild West. And also, we don't start negotiating these pilot agreements until after the project is fully permitted. So it's after the planning board has said, yes, you can have a solar there, then we're allowed to start the discussions about the pilot agreement.
Okay. Did you make a motion, Dave?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. I make a motion, we recommend the authorized payment in lieu of tax agreements for solar facilities.
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay, Adam?
Christie,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Nay.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
Aye. Get a thumbs up.
I don't know why it's not working.
we're taking Christie's word for this each and every vote.
Oh, there you go. He said aye.
Nothing suspicious about that.
We can see his
Sahana.
thumbs up.
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I will abstain.
Thank you, Jim.
Good grief, it takes me forever to scroll. This list is getting so long. The next one I have on my list is Article 16, authorization for solar contracts, low income, something shared solar. Also David's article.
Yeah, I don't have enough information to recommend this article currently, at least when I spoke with the town manager. He had suggested that a formal presentation was being put together for the June 7th board meeting, which I planned on attending, but otherwise I won't be making a recommendation unless someone felt strongly about having Select Member Jim Snyder Grant explain it in further detail.
We can wait and see it.
Along those lines, unless there is a desire for it or someone comes up with a good reason, I was not planning on having another meeting until after town meeting. We would do the right before town meeting one.
Right.
But we can see if there are multiple articles to still discuss. Does that change here? Well, we don't know enough. Do you think we'd be able to cover it in?
You know, if we're all the same, we could defer to right before town meeting and discuss it then, and have a vote then, and just have defer for the time being.
Defer, move along.
Okay. Sure.
Article 17, fleet lease agreements.
Just one quick
Oh, sorry.
item. The select board, at least according to the printed version I had received today, did recommend that last article.
Article 16?
Yeah. And you know, further, I'm sorry.
Jim Snyder Grant has commented on it in the chat that it was not, that it was
Oh,
deferred.
he said, my bad.
Oh, okay.
You know, we could discuss this towards the end, but I'm actually going to be traveling and out of town, so it might be more helpful to have someone else pick up Article 16 and run it across the finish line.
You mean you won't make it to town meeting?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I can take it.
Christine, if you can let us know after the select board meeting, or Dave, if you think we should have a meeting, we have plenty of time to have a larger meeting before then.
Okay.
Roland, was Article 17 yours?
Is there any warrant, I didn't able to get a look at the draft. Is there language on it?
No language.
So I'll basically explain what I believe it is. I did speak with the town manager on it, and it is when they're looking at going, you know, more green fleet. So it would be a $70,000 a year. This year would be a reduction of $50,000 to sign into lease agreements instead of purchasing the vehicles.
We'll have to defer this until we see language.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was that one, and that kind of dovetailed into Article 24, which was normally, which is the revolving fund or other procedures to dispose of vehicle trade-in or deposit vehicle trade-in proceeds. I don't know if that has language in it or
No
not.
language.
No.
It doesn't. So that I'll give you just a brief one, and we'll have to wait to defer on that as well. That is saying, okay, we're trading in a vehicle now, but we're not going to be purchasing a new vehicle, so we don't have a mechanism to take those proceeds and use those towards a lease payment. So that's what that is. It's become a revolving fund to take the return, the money that you get from getting rid of the vehicle and using that towards other vehicles or leases. Again, the emphasis on going electric in almost every vehicle, and that's become more and more of a reality with Ford introducing the F-150 Lightning, which is all electric. So I think that's what the direction the town is moving in. But that's basically what that is. It's a mechanism to get some of the proceeds. So until we have warrant article language.
Okay, so before town meeting, we will need to discuss Articles 16, 17, and 24 so far. Do you have a separate
And
list
10.
for that, Adam? And 10.
Not that I'm keeping track. Shall I move on with the next one?
Please do.
Article 18, which the language on this, well, not the language, sorry, the title of this change
I'm
today.
sorry, it has gone
deleted-
away, it looks like.
Deleted placeholder, it says.
Yes. We don't vote on that.
So I'm just going to make it yellow. Article 22, amend the general bylaws terminology of the select board.
Christine?
Oh, is that Mike? Sorry. Yeah. This one is just in response to the town vote and the election to change the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board and to go back through and amend documents to read Select Board. And apparently we have to vote on that officially.
How much does it cost?
I knew that was coming.
I'm just gonna say that I kind of forgot this was my article, and so I can't tell you for sure if it's gonna cost anything.
I didn't have it written down as your article.
It's
I had
hers,
this-
she took it from me.
Oh, I saw an email where you assigned it to Roland, and I missed
No, he
somewhere.
tried, but it was Christine who took it.
Okay, my bad. I'm trying to throw people under the bus, and nobody wants to walk up.
Throw me under the bus because I should have looked it up and see if it costs money. It's just a find and replace, Jason. It's fine.
Well, technically, Board of Selectmen is longer than Select Board, and Selectmen is longer than Member, so we're saving a few characters for every time we print it.
Love that.
Now if we have to go
Offset.
back and recast all the old documents.
I don't think you have to recast them. You just use them until they're gone.
Recast them.
Yeah, it's gonna be a bylaw change, rewriting of the bylaws. Or the change will happen in the bylaws.
All right, so I move we recommend.
I second that.
All right, a discussion?
Sorry, I got to change my notes now since Steve, I already had typed that up that Christine was going to recommend it.
I withdraw my recommendations.
No, fish. Are we ready to vote?
Yes,
Christy,
aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike. Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
Aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I vote aye. The next would be Amendment 23, amend general bylaws, department revolving funds. Who ended up with that? That was original Christie, and then maybe to Roland.
This one is mine, and I actually did
Yours
something
also.
different. I just found my note from the town manager, sorry. that I definitely have. So basically, this is going to be a one-time fee for a property. I'm just going to find it. Hold 1 second. I know I have this. Okay. This is going to be a non-refundable application fee for the removal permit for a tree on a property payable to the town of Acton, and it'll be deposited in the tree planting fund. The permit fee will be $350 per parcel, not per tree. And this fee covers the cost of the initial inspection and evaluation process conducted by the tree warden or their designated certified arborist. And the intent is to allow them to use the permit fees towards the public shade tree program. That's it. And I move to recommend it.
I'm sorry, did you say that this creates the fee, or is this an already existing?
I think they're going to start charging this fee and banking it for the public shade tree program.
I got stuck again. Oh, am I back?
Yes.
You're here.
Okay, I didn't hear your answer, I'm sorry.
This creates this fee.
Okay, if I want to cut down a tree in my yard, do I need to hire them?
No. This is where you, in instances where you would need to bring in our inspection group for whatever reason. I think it's businesses.
I would like to understand that part better.
Hold on a second, let me grab the policy.
Yeah, can you read us the article or the policy? I haven't had a chance to look at this one.
This is the policy on the removal of non-hazardous public shade trees by individuals or agencies other than the town of Acton, adopted by the tree warden and the select board on April 26th. The policy is to be used for the removal of any non-hazardous public shade tree by any individual, utility, organization, corporation, or agency other than the town of Acton. The policy is to be followed by all public shade trees as defined by Mass General Law. Tree growing within the right-of-way, at least 1.5 inches in diameter, measured 1 foot above ground, other than trees that are determined by the tree warden to be dead, diseased, or dangerous. Trees that are less than 5 inches in diameter. An applicant who wishes to remove a non-hazardous public shade tree is responsible for the following expenses: legal advertising, a non-refundable application fee for the removal permit, cost of the removal of the tree and stump, planting of sufficient replacement trees as described elsewhere in the policy.
Christine?
Yeah.
Can you reread the two notes about the diameter of the tree, because they were in opposition of each other?
Okay.
One comment said any tree 1.5 inches in diameter or larger, and another one said
trees that are less than 5 inches in diameter.
yeah. So
Steve is waving his hand like he knows something.
Please, Steve, please speak.
I know nothing about tree diameters. Isn't this article about setting up a revolving fund?
It is
for
about,
this?
yeah.
And not about trees. It's about
Good
what
point.
to do with the money.
Thank you.
It is specifically using this fee that they're going to collect in a revolving fund to pay for the shade tree program.
But we're not voting on the fee or the diameter. We're voting to set up a revolving fund.
Yeah.
Is the way I read it.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So, sorry, may I?
Certainly.
Does this mean that this is already a law? If all we're voting for is to set up a revolving fund, does this mean this is already a thing?
Yeah, I'm getting from the policy that this is already a policy.
You're reading
Board members.
state bylaw, right?
The definition of the public shade tree is in state law per David Martin.
Right, but is the fee of $350 to cut one down already a law here in the town of Acton.
We're not voting to create that fee in this
Right.
language, so I'm gonna go
Right,
ahead and say yes,
Rejecting this does not change the existence or not of that fee.
exactly.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
Second.
Any more discussion? All right. Adam?
Christine.
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
Dave.
Uh-oh.
Bueller.
Yeah.
Jason.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Roland.
Aye.
Sahana.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
And I will vote aye.
Wait, Jason, it's a revolving fund. Is it only enterprise funds you don't like?
That's why I was cautious that's why I hesitated. I'm not comfortable with the amount of funds we have in town, but I suspect we're gonna hear more about that in the next half an hour.
If we get there.
Bite your tongue, we're getting there.
All right, the next article I have on my list is 25 real property disposition, 26 Carlisle Road.
I make a motion that we recommend this article.
Second.
What is it?
It's the property on Carlisle Road, and there was an RFP out there for affordable housing, and the only one came from was Habitat for Humanity. And as far as I have lived, this is in my backyard, and since the past 15 plus years, that property has been useless and it's an eyesore. So this is a good proposition. So I recommend this article.
So do we just give it to them?
I think so. I think it's for $1 or something that the town hands it over to Habitat for Humanity.
I think it's haunted.
Adam, do you have a question?
It
or is
definitely looks haunted.
I had a question until Mike's comment blew my mind. Yeah, my question was a little bit more descriptive of what's going on with the property. I'm pulling it up on a map right now so I can get a look at where it is.
I'm going to ask Adam if this is actually important to your vote, because
Yeah, you gotta
it's
look
10-10
at.
and we have a
what
bunch
it
of
is,
articles still.
You gotta look at what it is, not where it is.
Yeah, I don't even know what this is, so I don't see any
It's a
reason why
run
not
down
this to me.
track that's ready to fall down.
Great, let's
Yeah.
vote it.
Jason?
Question, so we're giving it over to Habitat for Humanity. Does this mean that we're never gonna get any taxes off of this?
I'm sure once it's
Mr. Martin says that we will.
Yeah. Once there's a house up there, the taxes flow in. Right now, there's nothing for the town.
Very well, thank you.
All right. So, Hannah, did you make a motion yet?
I did.
And I believe Steve Noon seconded that,
Okay.
is that correct?
If I didn't, I intended to.
Okay, great. Christy,
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
Dave.
Abstain.
Jason. Oh, sorry, abstain. Jason.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Roland.
Aye.
Sahana.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Next article on my list is 27, authorized collective bargaining agreements.
Is this Steve? It's usually Steve. Oh, Dave?
I've got
No, I
Dave
didn't
on.
take it this time.
Yeah, I think it's me. I don't have the relevant information as of a few days ago. So I'll let to defer.
Color yellow. Okay, next is.
I'm sorry, we
article-
want someone else to
Oh,
take
sorry.
that article on, since Dave won't be at town meeting.
Dave, are you just not able to speak to it at town meeting, but you'll continue to own the article and hand it off, or would you rather somebody take it over completely now?
It appears to be frozen.
Can we ask Mr. Barrett if anything is likely happening?
Yeah, I don't have an update on that for you, Steve. So I could get something tomorrow for you, but right now I don't have an update.
Sometimes these are placeholders, but I'll take it. If something comes up between now and town meeting, I'll take the article.
Okay, it's been reassigned to Mr. Noon. Shall we move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're getting into 28 through 33, which all belong to me. I took them all because I thought they were all enterprise funds. To my surprise, Article 28 for the commuter lot and train station maintenance is not an enterprise fund. It's a special revenue fund, but it turned out that it was very fortunate that I took it because it interplays well with the enterprise funds and actually funds a portion of one of our enterprise funds. So let's go through these, I think, one at a time. I think in general, I can speak to all of them by saying I had kind of taken these with the intention that I would find money sitting here that I felt that the town should give back to us taxpayers, and I did not find that. I found that all of these funds have cash balances that are well within margin for the type of business that they are engaged in. Only 2 of our 5 enterprise funds receive subsidies, and those subsidies have been slowly dwindling over time. And so I can speak to each one of these specifically as we go forward. So let's go with these one at a time. Let me copy paste all of these and start making motions.
Madam Chair, I suggest we go through it like it's consent. If anybody wants to hold one, we can discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah, would you like to, because we could do it
Yes.
all of them at once? So to that end, I can tell you that I went over these in tremendous detail, and I sat down with Mr. Barrett and took a tremendous amount of his time to make sure that I understood all of this correctly, including reading all of the state laws, section chapter 44, section 53F and a half, which is quite interesting to say the least. And I have reviewed all of the balance sheets for all of these funds and really felt that the way the accounting was handled in all of these funds was appropriate and just. And I felt that the current balances in these funds were appropriate and just, the larger of which would be, of course, the sewer enterprise budget, which most of the money that's sitting there in cash is going to be spent on this upcoming project, and then also be on hand in the event that projected or eventual revenues don't happen. There's money in the fund there so the town doesn't have to cough up money for some of the debt service on that project. And that's really kind of it, unless somebody has any specific questions about any of these.
Would you go through the list? Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
My question is general. My question is, in your conversations with Mr. Barrett, did you bring up the topic about potentially collapsing any of these down into being general fund rather than having all these different balances in these different funds?
I didn't ask that question, and generally the reason I did not ask that question is because looking at the purpose of why these are enterprise funds and what that purpose achieves, it seems relevant that all of these enterprise funds exist. I did make some recommendations with regard to, I felt that some of these funds should be showing more on their balance sheet, specifically with regard to assets, depreciating assets and any fixed assets, such as the ambulance fund should have some of its, if it owns any equipment, that equipment should be listed on there. I felt that some of the equipment at the transfer station is not listed on the balance sheets for these funds specifically, but I felt it should be because a lot of the money that is spent out of these funds goes to the capital projects such as, equipment, vehicles, and so forth. And so I felt that myself, and I think that townsfolk in general would probably like to see a little bit more complete business entity type accounting of each of these funds, such that a better assessment of, dollar per service can be assessed.
Adam, could you go through the list of the enterprise fund articles and someone can hold them? Otherwise, we can vote them all together.
Sure. Article 28 is for the commuter lot station and maintenance, which is to raise from department receipts and appropriate $149,762 for the purpose of the article. Article 29 is for the septage disposal enterprise fund, which is to raise from department receipts $157,382. Article 30 is for the transfer station and recycling enterprise fund, which is to raise $585,000 from department receipts and transfer $147,613 from the retained earnings of this fund to appropriate a total of $732,613 for the purpose of the recycling and transfer station enterprise fund. Article 31 is for the sewer enterprise fund to raise $1.870421 million from department receipts and transfer $296,830 from the retained earnings of that fund to appropriate $2,167,251 to operate the sewer enterprise fund. Article 32 is to raise $1 million from department receipts, raise $150,000 from general fund revenue, so that is a subsidy, and transfer $326,770 from the retained earnings of the ambulance fund to appropriate a total of $1,476,770 for the purpose of operating the ambulance fund. Article 33 is the transportation enterprise budget to raise $220,000 from department receipts and raise $225,000 from the general fund as a subsidy and appropriate a total of $445,000 for the purpose of operating the transportation services. I will add specifically on this one, this enterprise budget typically receives approximately $160,000 from the commuter lot as a subsidy from one special revenue fund over to the enterprise fund, which is obviously not available this year because the commuter lot, I think, is only going to see somewhere between 15 and 45% of its expected revenue for the year because of the pandemic and the decline in people commuting. In spite of not receiving this $160,000, the general fund subsidy of $225,000 is less than the previous years of $260,000, and yet the fund is still expected to be stable and balanced at the end of 2022. And that is it for Articles 28 through 33. Any questions?
We have a motion?
I move that we accept Articles 28
Recommend?
through 33 as stated.
Recommend?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
All right, Adam. I'm sorry. Any more? Nope, I don't see anyone interested in speaking. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you. Second. Christy.
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Roland. Aye. Sahana.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, the next article I have on the list is Article 15, is that right? Did we
vote revolving fund budgets?
I'm looking at sorry, wrong list. I thought these looked familiar. Article 34, revolving funds budget.
Okay, that's mine. And unlike enterprise funds, these must balance revenue expense every year, and in fact have little or no impact on the financial performance of the town. For the most part, the revenue and expense estimates are about flat with last year. Some of them are a little down, and there is the only significant change in the revolving fund article is the addition of the public shade trees for $25,000, which we discussed earlier. So I imagine if that article passes, then this one will be voted as such. If it doesn't pass, then this one will have to be amended. But otherwise, since they are in balance at $786,687, I recommend that I move that we recommend Article 24 revolving funds.
Second.
Discussion? All right, Adam.
Christie,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland, Sahana,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Can we do the rest of the articles as consent?
Yeah, they're all mine. I'd love to do it as consent, but I do have one question.
Certainly.
Article 26, budget transfer. The book says that we recommended it. I don't remember voting on this at all.
We did. It was my article.
We voted on without any, okay. So we're not expecting that to change between now and the town meeting?
Correct.
Okay. So starting on page 87 of the most recent draft warrant. No, can't be 87. All right, thought I had the right number. Number 35. So it must be 67. 68. 68. Hear and accept reports. 36. Authorize easements. 37. Highway reimbursement program, chapter 90. 38. Insurance proceeds. 39. Gifts or grants. 40. Federal and state reimbursement aid. 41. Performance bonds. 42. Sale of foreclosed properties. And that's it. Any objections? Anybody want to discuss any of them? To sum it all up, we're basically approving that we would like to receive the money if we can.
Motion?
I move that we recommend Articles 35 through 42.
Second.
Did you hear that, Adam? Roland seconded.
Thank you, I did.
Oh,
Discussion? Nope. Adam, go ahead.
Christie,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Roland,
Aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
And I vote aye. I do believe that is the end of the article list that I have. We still have outstanding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 articles, 10, 16, 17, 18, 24, and 27.
How interesting are they? Do we need another meeting to discuss them? We don't generally have a very long meeting, especially with a 6 o'clock start time at town meeting.
One's a slidewalk easement.
you could always schedule it and then cancel it.
Okay. Then I will schedule out our regular time, which I believe is 2 weeks from now. No, it's next week.
Next week, yeah.
I would like to move that, if it works for people, to having a tentative meeting on the 15th, which gives us more time to get ready for these articles, unless people who have taken them over think they can have the information by next week. Wait, next week is Christine's birthday. Does that matter, Christine?
Will we make the book either way?
No, we won't. It's just a question of how long before town meeting do we have to meet?
And you have to
to
bring
discuss
cake.
these.
I say we push it later. I mean, if it's not gonna make the book anyway, there's no reason to do it sooner. Give it more time for words to come in.
More importantly, it's my daughter's birthday as well.
That's true. So the 15th, is that good? All right. Thank you very much. Committee business. I do not know of any minutes for us to review. So do we have any quick liaison reports?
I have a quick
Yes.
one thing. I saw John Peterson the other day walking by my house, and he suggested that we urge the town to move town meeting to early in May from early April to be more closer to Boxborough and aligned with them. I said I'd bring it forward, and that's right. Other than that, I have nothing.
Well, we can discuss that now or another time.
Another time.
Another time. I just think it just give us more time to prepare, and we still keep the town held to their same schedule. But we can talk about that at another date.
Did you
Town
have
meeting day of town meeting is set by the town charter, I believe. So, under the emergency conditions, we could adjust it, but that would be a charter change, I believe, and that's not that easy to do.
Yes, and as was discussed at ALG, moving the town election is a state level change. So
Well,
we will have a theoretically larger gap between the town election and town meeting if this change was made. Keeping in mind that this is a very unusual year. Christine?
Last school committee meeting, apparently the state reports that taxes are coming in higher than expected. State aid came in 200,000 higher than expected for transportation offsets, and they've extended free school lunch through next year, through the entire next calendar year for all schools.
Anyone else? Okay, I would love to hear a motion.
I move for adjourn.
We have a second? Wonderful. Adam? Adam?
Who seconded that?
A lot of people.
Pick one.
Mike, give it to Mike.
Hang on a second. I did something really stupid. I deleted all of the multiple extra voting boxes that I built during this meeting because I thought, oh, we're done. Okay, Christy.
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
Dave.
He's gone.
Jason.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Roland.
aye,
Roland.
aye,
Roland.
aye.
Tahana.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Aye.
Record.